6:30, so once the clock ticks over, we will be recorded. Does he have a second
Yep.
hand?
I stopped and measure that sign in the way.
But you are free to
Oh,
start,
John.
Madam Chair.
Welcome.
She measured them all.
Oh!
She's got a chart on the chair to write.
You are free to start.
Okay, everybody ready?
Yes, we are.
We have quite a big agenda, so I want to call the meeting to order, declare a quorum present. I'm going to rely on our name tags tonight to introduce people, and rather than introduce people, I have to, by law, state that planning board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. And I do believe we have a public comment period, but I don't believe we have any members here from the public that are not related to an agenda item. Is that correct tonight? Okay, so we'll move on, and there are no minutes to approve tonight. So our first action item is 5 New Templeton Road, which is an A&R plan. And give me your name again.
Marty Elowitz.
Marty Elowitz, okay, and you're the surveyor.
No, I'm the.
You're the owner.
Owner.
Okay,
Doug was the surveyor.
I'm the surveyor, so
you're the surveyor.
if he needs help, I'll be
Yeah.
happy to.
He needs lots of help.
Okay. Do you want to come up and unroll your plan? And what we do is we walk through our list and let you point it out. Just make sure we've covered all the bases and let.
You can have a seat.
You want to, does somebody else want to read this off? I'm doing a lot of talking tonight. You want to do this reading off? Yeah.
Do you want me to read it?
Wait till he gets unrolled and he can point to them as you read them,
I'm just gonna go through points 1 through 15,
Yep,
not the whole preamble.
yep. The plan requirements,
All
okay.
right, are we ready?
First of all, let me ask you, is there anything, do you want to just orient us on this?
You bet. We're at number 5 New Templeton Road, just after, if we look at our Locus Map, just after it splits off of Gardner Road. We're over here on the left-hand side. And Mr. Elowitz has a existing house, pool, shed up on a big lot that we've called Lot 1, consisting of 29 acres. We're going to create Lot 2, which would be about 3.3 acres. The frontage for his remaining Lot 1 would be 230 feet. Frontage for Lot 2 would be 346 feet. We have an area of wetlands in the back that spreads out from the center line of Natty Pond Brook. It creates little wetlands there, some wetlands through the middle of the property here, so that each lot has in excess of your 40,000 square foot requirements of upland.
Okay.
And again, each lot has more than your required area, more than your required frontage.
And you have a little insert up in here, which shows us where your lot is. If you just put it up.
You bet. Up in our Locus Map. Oh, as we see. Okay, we can spread more.
You can look on the same.
Put it on top of the speakers and we get horrible feedback.
Okay.
There's a speaker right under
Oh,
All right.
so if we look at our Locus Map, we've got Gardner Road comes up, forks off. Gardner Road heads to the northeast. New Templeton Road pretty much straight north. And we're just after that split. We're over here on the left-hand side. The lots go a long ways off the road and they back up to Natty Pond Brook.
Okay.
And it's a lot that says LOCUS, Locus, right?
Locus.
Yes.
A lot of distance out there.
Yeah.
Should we go through this?
New Temple. I'm just trying to. So New Templeton Road goes on.
Yes.
When you first pull onto New Templeton, the
splits.
corner, when you first pull
Okay,
in,
where is
it's
this
right on the
lot?
left.
That would be right in here.
Oh, that's the one that goes way back.
Yep.
All right.
There's sort of a strange guardrail
Yes, there is. I took it
situation
all the time, right?
in there.
Okay.
The road years ago went straight.
Yeah.
And then they turned it so people would stop.
Okay. And what's the zoning in that area?
Commercial, actually.
Okay.
Commercial.
Both this and the one that's being cut off?
Yeah, the
Even
front
though
of it
that's a
is, the front is commercial district, the rear is
Oh, that's the
residential
commercial line.
agricultural. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the line.
So this is our zoning district line right through here. The Lot 2 will be completely within your commercial district, and Lot 1 is in both.
Okay. I think that's fine. Anybody
fine.
have questions? Otherwise, we'll go through the checklist. You
Yeah,
ready?
looks good.
Okay,
Yep.
Francois is gonna read around and maybe, if
Okay.
there's a question, you can point to it.
You bet.
Okay.
You'll be so kind and indicate the property boundaries as you've done so before, including the north point, the date, and the scale.
Okay, and we've got a north arrow up on here. Scale is 1 inch equals 100 feet. We have a bar scale, graphic scale down in that area.
Yep.
And
The date?
the date is 7/25/18. That's when I prepared the plan.
Okay, and the other is the property boundaries as had been indicated earlier, so which,
Yes.
which
I-
place?
Question with property boundary. The boundary on that side beyond your, is,
Along here?
yeah, does he own back there too?
He owns back to centerline Natty Pond Brook. And he has about 756 feet along the center line of the brook.
Okay, so the brook's the boundary.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have the name of the record owner? The name, so let's start with that, name of the record owner.
Yes. Record owner Marty R. and Carol L. Elowitz.
Do we also have the name of the registered land surveyor?
We
And-
do.
And the Worcester Registry of Deeds book, and
Yep.
page reference conveyance to the recorded owner.
Okay. References deed book 40450, page 244.
Perfect. Area of each lot have been clearly indicated, 29.076 as well as 3.319, both in terms of acres, and you've also included square footage. Sufficient data to determine the location, direction, the length of every street and way line, lot line, and boundary line, the monuments of reference necessary to establish that these lines are on the ground.
So what we have in lot 1 is a lot of the property is bounded by wall. At angle points in the wall, we have drill holes. In the rear, we go down to the brook, which the brook is its own physical monument coming back along the northerly side. Again, we're bounded by wall. Have drill holes at the corner of the newly created lot, a wall on the northerly side, a wall on the southerly side.
Okay.
Does anybody here have any questions or concerns
Sounds
as of
good.
now? Otherwise, I'll just continue. Where and as practical, the boundary lines of contiguous and adjacent land, as well as the names of the owners thereof, as determined from the most recent tax list.
Pretty much we're surrounded by what used to be, well, it's still the legal owner is Metropolitan District Water Supply Commission, now commonly known as DCR, but that was the legal conveyance, was all to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Okay, and I see that you have there even there you have the deed book, the plan book, and so forth.
Correct.
And that is on not only the southern side, but also on the northern side, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and these are unique parcels.
Yes.
Number 6 is the location of all permanent monuments properly identified.
Again, what we have here along the road, we had iron rods, a number of drill holes, a stone bound. Again, the walls themselves are physical monuments, and we have drill holes at numerous places along the walls.
And you've indicated the brook itself also.
Correct.
Number 7 would be the location, names, and present width of non-public private ways abutting the property, if there's any.
Okay. New Templeton Road is a public way. It's a variable width. There are no other roads of any kind abutting the property.
Okay, so but there's non-public private ways.
There's public, but
Yeah,
no
No,
private.
no,
With
it says
public way.
non-public private ways is the only thing that it asks for here.
Right.
Oh, non-public,
No.
yeah.
Okay, non-public.
Okay, yeah,
There
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe I
None.
did not enunciate
Right.
that properly.
Right.
Okay. Number 8, any suitable space to record the endorsement of the board.
For our
The
signing.
approval is not required and the signature, I'm sorry, let me start this again. Suitable space to record the endorsement of the board. The approval is not required and the signatures of the members of the board.
Yep,
Right here.
the lower corner, we're good.
Number 9 is the zoning classification and location of any zoning district boundaries that may lie within the locus of the area.
Yep,
plan.
that's
It's
there.
got that,
Yes,
you just
yes,
described
that.
that to us, and
Yep.
now I see it's labeled on each
Yep.
side, yep.
Number 10 is in the case of a creation of a new lot, the remaining land area and frontage of the land in the ownership of the applicant shall be shown.
And it was.
Yep, that's, there's the
Yeah,
remaining
we've got
frontage.
Lot 1
Mhm.
area and frontage.
Yep,
Thank you. Number 11, location of all existing buildings, including any setbacks and side and rear yard designations.
Okay. And we've got a house, a pool, a shed. Each of these structures is well in excess of the required zoning setbacks from any either existing or newly created lines out here.
For my
Okay.
clarification, what you've designated there as a pool is that rectangular piece that is at 139 feet from the boundary. So it's that
Correct.
rectangular. Okay. Big pool. Number 12, location and area of any wetlands on the lots being created by the plan, including the lot being created by the remaining land. And in lieu of delineating the wetlands on the remaining land, the applicant may provide written certification from the surveyor or professional engineer who prepared the plan that the remaining parcel of land contains the minimum required upland area required under the zoning bylaws.
Okay. And we've shown the areas of wetlands, and we have a note that each lot has the minimum required upland area of 40,000 square feet.
Okay, good. And this just says, which you know, A&R approval does not constitute compliance with zoning requirements for building purposes. So you'd have to
Correct.
come back. All right, are we ready to sign? Anybody have questions?
No.
Do we need
Okay.
a motion?
Yes,
I make a motion that we approve the A&R as presented?
I second. Nope.
yep.
No. Okay.
This is an approval not required.
Oh.
No, there's no vote to approve it.
Oh, okay. My
You
apologies.
guys sign it.
We sign.
I guess you're right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we
Sorry.
have our special pens?
Yeah, I have your special
Can I give
pen.
this back to you?
You weren't here.
You would have been
Yes.
fine.
We just-
I
That
have
is
somebody
true, we
else,
just
but-
need to check it, we don't need
I
to.
couldn't, I had no clue.
Oh, you would have been fine.
I would've
So how
just
many
said,
signs
you
are we,
Town line.
copies are
Oh,
we
yeah.
signing?
Thank
Good to bring the expert.
Huh? Yeah.
To bring the
But I
expert.
didn't bring him, it's just a coincidence he's here
Yeah.
for other
See,
business.
Oh,
really? Yeah, I wouldn't have any clue, I
See if
said,
you
you
can
guys
get it
figure it
all.
out. I paid a lot of money for this, you guys figure
Well,
it
yeah,
out.
we
I
do this
said
all
we
the
use
time,
Doug,
so.
Doug's good. Very
Okay,
good.
we're gonna start here. How many do you want us to sign?
Yeah.
They need to sign at least 3
He knows.
paper and 1 Mylar.
Yeah, how many do you need to
Can you
keep?
line them, you
We
can line them up.
keep 3 paper, you guys take the
Okay.
Mylar.
You can sign them, you can stack them up a little
Line
as
them
long
up.
as they
How's
don't
that? And we'll
bleed
put some-
through. They won't bleed through.
The siding blocks are all in a row, how would that be?
Put this up later.
Where's it?
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome,
Oh,
Mark.
you're on.
there.
Okay, so it's next.
Okay, next person after me can,
But if you disconnect it,
Yeah, that's,
it's on a 2-foot stand.
I know.
Florida, here we come.
Good for you.
That's my concern.
Got a high signal strength.
Yeah.
She's being cranky.
Like I said, it works fine at my house. I connect to my internet, but I come here and it does not
Sign them all.
connect to the town Wi-Fi.
Yeah, might as well.
Put it on the market.
I think it will.
We're gonna press it, right? Yeah, yes.
No, I know, that's why I'm not doing passwords. Okay, let's go here.
So that
I
password's
will.
public anyway.
It is, it's actually printed right
It's
there.
written behind you.
Yeah.
I know, huh? It's incredible. So now we'll have to take that to
Yeah.
No.
then whatever we want.
Yeah, it's literally.
Sure. I forget what the fee is now.
Capital H.
Yeah, UBV 17.
Yep.
where's our other A&R person?
Any of these for me?
Yeah, and the extras.
That's right.
So then when that doesn't connect, go back into when you touch his password, it will be some super long password that's written in.
It's really weird.
It is very weird.
I can reset your machine later if we need to, okay?
It's in the same.
Yep, just,
You gotta date these too, don't we?
what?
Date them?
Yeah, the date needs to go on the bottom.
You wanna do that for us?
Do I gotta spell it out or should I just put numbers?
Is that gonna
You can
cost
put
extra?
numbers, that's fine.
What's today's date?
March 4th,
3/4.
3/4/2020. Yep.
Or 4/3/2020 if you were Europe, right? It always gets me.
Though I usually do the month as, so it'd be if I do 4-MAR-2020, I never use the.
No, I checked it, I'll take it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that's thanks. You want to share?
Sure. That's what I figured. Anything of importance, I'll share with you.
Yeah.
I usually charge you before the meeting, I just forgot.
I hear ya.
Been able to get out there.
Been a crazy week.
This is definitely cranky.
I think it's better.
Me too.
Craig, I brought a lot of physical copies today. If you need anything, please let me know. But in the meantime, yeah, you're having a lot of trouble getting on.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you
How
all.
many copies do you need to keep?
I need 3 physical, and I know you're taking the Mylar, so you can.
Okay. Well, here's 3 prints for you folks.
Okay.
I'll take those and you want to take.
I'll take this, these two.
That piece of paper that was there, I can take.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Is this ours? Is this our paperwork here?
This is fine.
Okay. I've lost our elastic band.
Oh,
I just saw it.
just saw
I
it
was just
flying
here
over
a
here.
second ago. Anybody see it?
You're what time?
There it is.
Plastics.
There it is.
Oh,
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Thank you, Doug.
Good luck, Marty.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all again.
Best of
Take
luck.
care, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another A&R plan. This one involving Cruise Road. And again, Doug Andreis?
Andrysik.
Andrysik, I'm trying to get your name right here. All right.
So we want to need that
Um,
again, right?
Yeah, send it down. We'll give John a turn at it, or Craig or somebody. All right,
That's yours. Yep.
you wanna, again, line it up for us?
You
and-
bet we will.
Turn it this way and we'll stand up and, anyway, you can walk us through it and then we'll go through the
bet.
criteria.
Oh, yeah, huh?
Like it was made for it. Okay, we're here on behalf of Adam Dexter. Owns property at 33 Cruise Road, and also his neighbor, the Dixons, who live at number 31. And we're looking at the Locus Map to start. As we come off of Williamsville Road and head up, we'll be on the westerly side of Cruise Road, just before we hit its intersection with Thompson Road. And Dexter owns a piece of about 30 acres of land. We'll go over the, we've got a little plan
Thank you.
for us to show you what the entire property looks like.
Thank you.
Again, if we look at
Lot two.
Lot 2, the big block owned by Adam Dexter of just about 30 acres, frontage on Cruise Road and Schaefer Drive. Goes back quite a far way off, and what we're doing is not creating any brand new lots. We're taking a parcel from Dexter to be conveyed to Dixon in the front.
Parcel
So,
B?
exactly,
B.
parcel B, so that parcel B will be combined with land of Dixon to create a new lot for them. It's going to leave the Dexter lot in the back with about 27 acres remaining.
Can you just, before we go down our checklist, explain this Schaefer Drive situation?
Yeah, Schaefer Drive is on the books as a town way, 40 feet wide. Was shown on plans when there was a number of lots that came down the road here that were created, and Schaefer Drive was shown on those plans. And Dexter's property currently has 170.85 feet of frontage on Cruise Road, but has over 400 feet of frontage on this Schaefer Drive. So I don't know the entire history of it, but I think back in Schaefer Drive was an old road many years ago that someone had researched, and they were able to utilize that to obtain the frontage for this big lot here.
But that's not the frontage for either of these lots. It is the frontage for.
It would be the legal frontage for the Dexter lot.
Lot 2.
In that they have 170 feet of frontage on Cruise, which would be less than the 200 feet. So that would not count. So their legal frontage then would be on the Schaefer. And in this case, we're not altering in any
any way,
way
right.
either of the frontages.
Either of the
for
front,
either
that's what I
property.
meant to ask.
Right, those
All
are
right.
being remaining unchanged.
Everybody understand?
Yes.
Okay, so John, you wanna be our,
Sure. So point 1, property boundaries, North Point, date and scale. I know I
Okay,
already
you wanna-
kinda did some of that.
just point them for us, please,
Okay.
we're the one in the middle.
Yeah, we've got a
Point.
north point, again, our graphic scale down at the bottom, 1 inch equals 60 feet. Property boundaries, what we have is the lot in front owned by Dixon at 31 Cruise Road. It was down by wire fence, has a piece of wall that comes in the back. A number of years ago, I think about 10 years ago, there was another A&R done to create parcel A, which was done to, I believe, contain the septic system for lot 31. Parcel A was created along in this fashion. Another piece of wall then goes back out to a pipe at Cruise Road. The Dexter property coming back here and on our little map that we just looked at, you can see how it blooms out quite a bit in back, containing almost 30 acres. And what we're looking to do now is create this parcel B, coming up from iron rods down to a piece of wall, back over to another wall, and back up to the existing property of Dixon, parcel B containing just under 2.5 acres. Not a buildable lot by itself. It's going to be adjoined with other property of Dixon to form one undivided lot.
Okay,
2, name of the record owner, name of the registered land surveyor, and the Worcester Registry of Deeds book and page reference.
In our little area of notes, record owner, we've got owners, recording information, assessors references for each of the properties. Record owner Adam Dexter, 33 Cruise Road. Deed book and page, assessors map 1, lot 68. Number 31 Cruise Road, James and Tina Dixon. Deed book, map 1, lot 162.
okay,
And 3, the area of each lot, which you've
Yep.
already gone over. 4, sufficient data to determine the location, direction, and length of every street and way line, lot line, and boundary line, monuments of reference necessary to establish these lines on the ground.
Okay. And we've got Cruise Road as public variable width. Again, not altering in any way either the frontages on that. And we have our little Schaefer Drive, which was instituted a number of years ago. Again, property lines are very nicely monumented and marked from a wire fence, stone walls. We've made a number of drill holes, set a bunch of iron rods, so that we've got a lot of physical monumentation for each of the lots here.
okay.
Where practical, boundary lines of contiguous and adjacent land and names of the owners thereof as determined from the most recent tax list.
Okay. And we have the abutters, names, recording information, assessors maps all the way around. And we've supplemented it with our little exhibit plan to show you out behind the rear of the Dexter lot.
Right. Okay,
6 was the location of all permanent monuments properly identified, which you've already showed us. 7 is the location, names, and present width of non-public private ways abutting the property, which I believe is the Schaefer Drive that you showed us.
And
And the
what's the
cruise.
width of it?
40 feet,
40 feet by 107, by 200.
40 by 428.
That's right.
in the public way of Cruise Road.
Correct.
It's fine, okay.
Number 8, suitable space to record the endorsement of the board. The approval is not required, and the signatures of the members of the board.
Okay.
Yep.
Lower left-hand corner.
Okay. Zoning classification and location of any zoning district boundaries that may lie within the locus of the plan.
Zoning is residential, agricultural, and all this land and all the surrounding land is all within that district.
All right. In the case of the creation of a new lot, the remaining land area and frontage of the land in the ownership of the applicant shall be shown, which you've shown us multiple
Yep.
times. 11, location of all existing buildings, including setback and side and rear yard designations.
Yep, we've got on the Dixon lot, first we've got a house and a barn. Shown that it's well in excess of any of the required zoning setback laws, particularly for the new lot line. Well, and again, this is all going to become them, so the house is 130 feet from its newly created lot line. The Dexter house is in this spot, 132 feet from the lot line. The chicken coop is also 43 feet from the nearest lot line that we have in there.
Okay. Location and area of any wetlands on the lots being created by the plan, including the lot being created by the remaining land. In lieu of the delineating the wetlands on the remaining land, the applicant may provide written certification from the surveyor or professional engineer who prepared the plan that the remaining parcel of land contains the minimum required upland area required under the zoning bylaws.
Okay. And we've shown some wetlands that are the front area of the Dixon lot, and we've also added our note here to
I
note
see it,
number
note
5,
yeah.
that each of these lots contains in excess of your 40,000 square feet of upland areas.
Okay. And the last point again is just the A&R approval does not constitute compliance with zoning requirements for building purposes.
Great. I think we're ready. You want to turn them around and we'll do our
You bet.
signatures? I'm going to hand one of those pens up. Where did they wind up?
Didn't we just do this?
Thank you.
Hang on 1 second. I'll get out of your way. All right. We're only signing 4 of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
you folks are gonna keep 3, and I'm gonna take the
You're just going to
Mylar
take
with
the
me.
Mylar, that's all you want? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Need them too. You're the last one.
Twice in a row.
All right. What did I do?
Are you doing a date?
John, you want to hand that list
I
back?
forgot what
Of
it
course.
was beforehand.
Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, if somewhere someone could write in the date on the bottom would be good.
I'm going to give it to Craig and Grace.
And the registry of deeds would be happy.
Okay.
Now I have to remember who everybody is to give it back to Clerk to sign.
Let me look, I gotta remember.
Well, thank you.
Well, we thank you for your time and your signatures and your
Well, and your well
good
done
humor this
explanation.
evening.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Very well done.
Thank you. We'll be back again.
We hope so.
Thank you.
You have my. A little powder rubber bands.
And hope you get home before midnight tonight.
Yes, one of those nights. We'll see.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our third action item, which is Mr. Hume, who has 2 of his associates with him from MRPC, and they're presenting the transportation chapter of the master plan. And there is a copy here we can refer to, as well as it being posted on our Chromebooks. So whoever would like to start, introduce yourself, though. to the-
I'd like to introduce myself
Yes.
as John Hume, Planning and Development Director with the Montezuma Regional Planning Commission. And this is Jonathan Rose and Brian Doherty, who is a transportation planner. And tonight, Jonathan was going to go through a draft inventory and analysis section of the transportation element. It doesn't consist of recommendations, it's just the draft inventory and analysis part so far. And Jonathan, I believe, has a handout, and he's going to go through a PowerPoint handout for about 10 or 12 minutes or so, and then we can have some discussion.
Okay, so this is up on the board?
No.
No, okay. Or
Just hand it
PowerPoint
in.
is
There's a,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got it on the computer too.
It's funny, you're talking about bridges and the screensaver's a bridge there, but it's picking up.
Can I get a PDF of that afterwards so that I can make sure it's
Absolutely.
posted?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right. It's just a quick highlight, so I'm just going over some more interesting notes in the entire plan, otherwise we'd be here all night. So this is just an update on the current status of the transportation element of the master plan. And I'm just going to go over what exactly we're doing and how it's being funded. And Hubbardston applied under the Planning Assistance Grant to update the transportation chapter of the master plan. The grant was awarded, and MRPC is providing technical assistance to the town at no charge. The assistance consists of collecting and analyzing existing transportation data, attending meetings to summarize information gathered at inventory and analysis stage, which would be tonight, drafting recommendations, reviewing the drafting recommendations at a meeting and preparing a final element. And the planning assistant grant requires the project to be completed on or before December 31st at the end of the year. And this element, it's just about transportation. We're not talking about anything else, just private automobiles, public transportation, bicycling, and pedestrian modes of travel, examining the conditions of the roadway system, and draft recommendations that will be discussed at the public meeting next month. Our role in transportation planning is we are the Metropolitan planning organization that has the responsibility of prioritizing transportation projects in Massachusetts. And the RTP outlines priority needs and policies for the region. And we develop this through studies and discussions with local officials and through public comment. And before anything gets funded, it needs to be identified through the RTP. Transportation improvement programs is federally funded. It requires prioritizing the listing of short-range construction projects proposed for implementation during or federal fiscal year cycle. It must, to receive the funding, it must be included in the TIP. The Massachusetts TIP is a comprehensive effort to improve the transportation system by local officials, the Massachusetts Joint Transportation Committee, and the Massachusetts Regional Transit Authority, MRPC, and MassDOT, Department of Transportation. And the draft inventory analysis contains project development summary. Just to highlight over the journey to work, and about 99% of Hubbardston's workforce works in Massachusetts. Just under 80% works within Worcester County itself. And over the last 8 years that we examined, worked at home, public transportation, walked and carpool categories all increased in Hubbardston. Drove alone decreased. So there's more carpooling, more mass transit going on, fewer individual drivers. And the mean travel time to work has increased marginally from 2010 to 2018, from 36.5 to 35 minutes, which is about just under 5%.
Do we know, I mean, can we ask some quick questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do we have some information as to the length or the increase? Is it primarily because of distance or because of traffic? Or do you have that information at all? If you don't, that's fine. I'm just curious.
It's,
It could be assumed that it would be traffic. We can't determine that.
yeah, it could be a
There's
mixture
also
of both.
a note in the plan that maybe people are willing to come out further because
Mhm.
housing's gotten more expensive.
Right, so it's driving the need for
Lo-
cheaper housing.
Yep.
Okay.
Just a quick overview of roadway system. It's comprised of just 2 state highways, Route 62 and 68, and a network of roads that serve the town center and the rural residential areas. These are classified as minor arterial roads, Route 68, which is eligible for federal aid, and collector streets, Route 62, Brigham Road, New Westminster Road, Williamsville Road, Burnshirt Road, and New Templeton Road, and these may be eligible for federal aid as well. mainly the major collectors. And the local roads and streets are everything that hasn't been named, which aren't eligible for federal aid, but they are for state aid under Chapter 90.
The local roads are eligible for chapter 90.
For Chapter 90,
Okay.
but not for federal aid.
Okay, got it.
So the terminology we were thinking of before is collector roads, Alice, right?
Yeah,
Excuse me.
it's all right. Go ahead.
And for average daily traffic, from the traffic count, it's over a 10-year period, so 2009 to 2019 from the last data available, and it's gradually increasing. It's more concentrated along certain roads, and there have been some decreases in a couple, but for the most part, there's been a gradual increase, and that can be found on attachment 2, and I have extra handouts of maps if anybody's interested or needs them.
Oh.
They're listed with the attachment name on the preceding page.
They're attachment 2 here.
Yep. That's 1B.
1B, keep going.
Yep. 2. There it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
No surprises.
Are these traffic counts done by, who are they done by?
It's a combination of Mass DOT, and we also have a contract with them where we go into a number of them.
Okay, so it's always public
and stuff. Right.
traffic counts.
Right, we haven't pulled anything from any private consultants or anything
Okay,
like that.
thanks.
Most of them in Hubbardston are actually by MRPC.
Okay.
What's that?
Go ahead.
All right. So also is roadway safety, and the Montechusett region as a whole saw 10,746 crashes over the 3 years between 2016 and 2018, and only 95 occurred of those incurred in Hubbardston, 1% of the crashes in the Montechusett region. Gardner Road, Route 68, is a crash quarter that saw 23 crashes in that period, with 5 of those being injury crashes. So someone, as a result of those crashes, was injured. And that was the highest volume crash corridor. Old Boston Turnpike at Worcester Road intersection was the highest volume crash cluster, with 9 over that 3-year period, with 2 of those being injury crashes. A total of 32 crashes, 7 injuries within those 2 locations, and they've been suggested for further study of the locations. It's just to examine why they are the most prominent. And there is an attachment of that map as number 3.
Yeah.
Crash, no,
Okay,
crash
okay.
corridor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Red,
Yeah,
fatal.
yeah,
There was 1 fatal crash
Yeah.
over that 3-year period, yeah.
yeah. Keep this one off the road, hit a tree there.
Mm-hmm.
But given it wasn't on a crash corridor, it was
Right.
assumed to be driver induced, and it's not.
Right.
So pavement conditions is just a quick overview of this. Structural conditions of the majority of federal eligible roads in Hubbardston are determined by Mass DOT and MRPC pavement surveys. Hubbardston is generally on par with the rest of the Montechusett region, with similar federal aid eligible road miles in terms of overall condition. It should be noted that these conditions only reflect a portion of the roadways in town and not any local classification of roadways. And the concern is always of funding available for roadway maintenance, lagging behind the price of the maintenance, which always increases.
I have a question
Yeah.
on that. You have a map,
Mm-hmm.
which is 1B pavement condition survey.
Yep.
And it just seems to me that the green are the excellent roads.
Mm-hmm.
But shouldn't we now make 68 where, shouldn't that be green now all the way up to just before the town center district because of all the work that's been done?
Right, but it's all been redone.
All of Worcester Road should be green, it's all brand new.
Right.
68, I think, is out of date because it's
Yeah.
marked as
Yeah.
fair and
It's not,
good.
but it's
Yeah.
considered Worcester Road.
Right, and that was just a recent project. So Route 68 and 62 in Hubbardston, and as a matter of fact, all numbered routes in the region are done by DOT. They have a 3-year cycle for their surveys, so many times the data lags behind. So we have a disclaimer in our pavement data saying that it should be viewed as an overall indication of, in other words, it's not a snapshot of today, it's over a number of surveys done in the last 3 or 4 years or so.
Well,
Between-
before we incorporate this in our master plan,
Mhm.
can you check it again?
Yeah, we
And
can-
see
we
if
can
and they've
and-
updated it,
yeah.
because it really, it's such a huge part of our town.
yeah.
And it's just had major improvements, it's really much better.
And it's
It
supposed to
it wasn't
start-
just paved, it was
It was
rebuilt.
paved, and then
Right,
they
yeah.
also did the
All the
sidewalks.
guardrails,
Yeah,
everything,
construction.
yeah.
And they're gonna start the garden
Or
road
see if-
phase this summer.
And they'd give you a hard time if you fixed the map, just for
Yeah,
us, I don't
mean,
know.
We could amend it just on this master plan, so that particular data is from a state database that we wouldn't be able to change, but we could certainly.
Yeah, update it for our
change that.
master plan, it makes us look better, and it was a huge effort
Okay.
in town.
Alright, so update for the
Next.
Worcester Road construction.
I'm sorry.
So moving slightly away from roads is bridges. And so Mass Department of Transportation provides the bridge rating table for MRPCs. We use their resource for determining the quality. As of September 2018, there are 32 bridges in the region that were structurally deficient, and 3 of these are within Hubbardston, and they were listed in the attachment 4.
Sheet 3.
Yep, there are only 3
Three
in
in
Hubbardston.
Right.
And 2 of those are currently being worked on from the winter of 2019 through 2020. And then the last one along Williamsville Road is scheduled for work in 2023.
Just out of curiosity, the
Just
MRPC
did that
region encompasses how big an area?
22 communities, so
So we represent a 10% deficiency rate.
for the structurally deficient bridges, yeah.
That's high.
Yeah.
I
There's only
believe,
3 of them.
Yeah, there's
And they're
only
being
3 in
fixed.
Hubbardston that are structurally deficient.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, of the overall
Oh.
32 bridges that
Mhm.
are rated structurally deficient, 10% were here in Hubbardston.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very high number.
Yeah, but 2 of those are currently being replaced. or
I
being
understand that,
worked
so
on,
that's great.
can I add that the one on Williamsville Road, I believe, has already been done?
Really?
Yeah. It was under a 1-lane restriction with a light for, what, a year and a half?
Yeah, it's replaced.
It is replaced?
I
Yeah,
don't
most
believe that's
recently.
accurate. That red dot, it's already been done.
Within the last year, or?
No,
Craig
it's,
would know,
it's been
'cause
a
he's-
few years.
That's been,
Probably like 4 or 5 years, maybe.
Okay, we'll have to check the reference on the map because
Yeah.
it may be.
they did a lot of work on that bridge.
Right. There are 2 bridges, it's called the Accelerated Bridge Program, it's a statewide program, and they're working on their backlog of structurally deficient bridges, and there are 2 scheduled, they just actually went out for bid recently in the last
This
few
one
months.
says it's planned to be replaced in
So, we'll have to
2023.
review that.
That's in
Again,
3
it's a
years, but it
statewide
was already
database
done.
that we
Is there a
pull.
full replacement, or was there
Oh.
a repair done?
Both of those are listed in our table.
Yeah, maybe
Okay, so
That's
that's what it is. This is,
Done.
I think we're fine, because this is,
Oh, Christina says it's the one at the far end.
All the way at the other end.
Yeah, Williamsville.
Right, well, there are 2 on Williamsville. There was
There's
one that
one
was
right by
updated right
Thompson.
here near the Country Hen, and then one that was all the way down where the water falls under.
that's the one that's the one that's marked here. So the point I think
Yeah.
is that what it says here, I think repairs were done at that point in
Oh,
time.
okay.
But this is a full replacement, it's scheduled for 2023.
makes
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
these
So-
are full
so-
replacement.
So that's what that marks in red.
So
Yeah.
even with the repairs, it's probably still structurally deficient.
Correct.
Yeah, the red indicates structurally deficient, so.
Yeah.
There is a
Okay.
full replacement on those two, scheduled to shovel in dirt, so to say, this winter.
Okay.
So, the bidding process, the state takes care of it, it should be already through that point, as you know.
Okay.
And then the other one in town, that's scheduled for 2023.
Evergreen and, what's the other
Oh,
one?
that's this one here.
Right. These other two is Evergreen and
Old
Route 62.
Boston Turnpike, yeah.
Right.
That's being worked on now.
Yeah.
They're gonna be done
Yeah.
this year.
And it's the last one that is the one that is in red, that is in planned for 2023.
Yep.
Okay.
And to address public transit, there's no fixed bus route in Hubbardston. Massachusetts Regional Transit Authority, MART, goes run the bus service, and it goes through Gardner and connects to the wider system through the region. And they can be contracted out to provide services, but
Right.
there's no scheduled route through Hubbardston. And as for Commuter Rail, there's the service in the Fitchburg line at North Station, including the Wachusett Commuter Rail Station in West Fitchburg, the intersections of Route 2 and 31, and there's the John W. Oliver Transit Center in Greenfield, which is also a train station that services Amtrak Vermonter line and Condot's Hartford line.
Nothing close.
No. And for other transportation systems, there's a freight railroad line that runs through the town that is operated by Providence and Worcester, which is a Class 2, where it's a regional railroad company. And for aviation, there are 3 general aviation municipal airports: the Fitchburg Airport, the Gardner Airport in Templeton, and the Sterling Airport in Sterling. And outside of the Massachusetts region, there's the Orange Municipal Airport.
Yeah.
Question too, is there
Yeah,
a
there's no
planned
10.
rail stop going to be in Williamsville? I mean, not a Williamsville,
Gardner?
what's the town that's one town up? Gardner.
Gardner, Westminster.
So, yeah, Westminster. Oh, it is called Gardner Westminster, and
They
does that
actually do
station
have a
exist?
train station there.
In Westminster?
Yes.
It's in, so the Wachusett station was just constructed 5-6 years ago, and it's in West Fitchburg, right on the line.
Right.
Oh, it is in West
Actually,
Fitchburg.
the layover
Alright.
station they put is in Westminster, but the actual commuter rail station itself is in West Fitchburg.
What's a layover station?
They park the trains there overnight, so they don't have to drive them back into North Station and the service areas.
So they can start in the morning from there.
Right.
And they pick up right there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
For bicycles and pedestrians, so pedestrian access is generally limited to small areas within Hubbardston. In 2016, the Hubbardston Center School joined the Massachusetts Safe Routes to School program. Town hasn't been very active in the past, but there's been active interest. In 2017, Hubbardston had their Complete Streets Policy and Prioritization Plan approved. On February 28th, they received the Complete Street Grant to install a sidewalk on Gardner Road from High Street to Curtis Recreational Field. To prioritize the Route 68 North reconstruction, the project was shifted to sidewalk improvements on Elm Street, extending past the center school. The sidewalk work began in the fall of 28. The sidewalk along Route 68 to Curtis Field will be included in the town center project.
Another question?
No?
As part of the 68 going towards Worcester,
Mhm.
or going towards Holden, I guess I should say, they put in a huge sidewalk in front of the cemeteries there and all the way
Mhm.
back, and seems like it would be, and I thought, nobody's gonna use this, but actually, you do see people walking on it now for exercise and.
A lot of
and-
folks from the Hubbardston House walk out on that.
Yeah, so it might be worth noting,
Okay.
is it's a new long stretch of,
Right.
good sidewalk there.
Yeah, and that was also a transportation improvement program project that we list on our prioritized list that was done a few years ago with federal funds.
And that was part of the Worcester Road paving project. When they redid the road, they rebuilt the sidewalk too.
But there's so few sidewalks, I think, that are really, you know, handicap
Usable.
friendly, and
Right.
that we should note it, I think.
That's part
Existing.
of the push with complete streets is access for all users, ADA compliant, pedestrian, bicycle certainly, and a project that's sort of in the pipeline right now. Currently, it's listed in 23. The highway side of our tip is actually going north from Elm Street in
Mhm.
town up to Williamsville Road, and that will also include complete streets improvements, increased sidewalk.
Oh, that's a long stretch.
Sure.
Okay, Elm
Yeah.
Street by the school, all the way up
Which is
through
right here.
town,
Right.
to Williamsville, to the
It's over
church.
a mile, I believe.
Yeah.
With the, in fact, we have a town setting committee meeting tomorrow night. That's part of this whole new section going up through the
Right.
center of town and up to Gardner Road
Right,
and High
it's
Street.
it's an extensive project.
Yes.
It's probably about $6 million. And,
Right.
you know, as soon as the design moves forward, we'll be able to look for funding opportunities. Right now, it's listed in 2023, but it always changes. So depending on project readiness.
Right.
Will that include streetlights too, do you know?
I believe the flashing beacon will be replaced. Street lighting, I'm not sure.
I believe it is part of the program.
Is it?
Or just, when you finish your chapter, put those new stretches in to the extent you can.
Mhm. And as for recommendations, currently being worked on and be presented at a later date.
Okay.
Questions for the group? Are you ready for questions? You want more to your presentation? Are you ready for,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
okay, anybody?
Sounded
So-
good, I thought.
I think it's a great job. I actually have one more question, which is, I live a stone's throw from where that fatal crash was, up on Mount Jeff. And it does strike me as I drive around town, and that tree in particular is quite close to the paved portion of the road in the right-of-way. And I was just wondering, from a transportation point of view, on these back roads, is there some surveying that goes on to determine whether trees that are too close to the pavement or, you know, in the right-of-way?
The local roads, the smaller classification roads, it's sort of, no, there's not really.
That's up to us, correct?
It's up to the town?
community itself,
Right, yeah.
correct?
So if it was on a higher classification road where maybe you get a federal aid for a project, you'd have to consult what's called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and that basically guides standards for signs,
But
trees,
trees?
right away, sidewalks, everything. You know, what exists out there for local roads is
What we
basically
got.
what
'Cause-
you
Because I really think as long as you're tailoring a plan for us in the master plan, you might put in that that should periodically be surveyed in our minor roads. Because as there was, I'm telling you, if you walk on that road, it's probably 3 feet closer to the pavement than the other.
And there's a lot of other locations.
And there's a
too.
lot of trees like that in town, it's by no means unique.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah, it's not. Another
Preserve's
issue
terrible.
a lot of towns have is just sight distance. Pulling up to an intersection, there may be some unmanicured grass that grows up through the summer, and all of a sudden there's a sight distance problem there in August. And I'm not sure what the DPW, if they have a list, a punch list of areas they visit on a yearly basis to
Well,
make sure everything's okay.
In your recommendations,
Sure,
consider,
we can
consider us
certainly-
back road dwellers and do what you can for us in that way and make some suggestions as to how that should be monitored and where the standards would come from.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I had a question regarding the federal aids. I'm just kind of curious, what kind of potential federal aids? Because we typically, when we listen to what, during the town meetings, we always talk about the state funds that come towards us. But I'm kind of curious, I've never really come across, especially for a town like ours, as to what potential federal aids can be leveraged. And is that something that you can elaborate a little bit more? I'm not saying if you have the answers right now, but if there were such an opportunity that towns like Hubbardston or the size of Hubbardston or the demographic of Hubbardston can take into consideration.
Yeah,
what that
there's
would be.
a number of different funding categories through Federal Highway and the U.S. Department of Transportation. Hubbardston, all the federal aid eligible roads are highlighted in the master plan on the map.
I understand that, but the question is how do you take advantage of that, and how do you get to the point where, as a community, we can potentially ask, or ask, but basically submit a request for aid, and I don't know what kind of categories they have available, so that would be good for us to have as a guideline.
Yeah,
We can include as part of the master plan.
We have the process included in the master plan. Basically, it starts off with a project need form that would be
Okay.
more or less a discussion with DOT, and we would be involved, and we'd be able to help fill data points that are needed. And then the town may be required to hire a designer. And Hubbardston's been proactive when it comes to, especially with the size of the town, with attaining federal aid for roads on Route 68 especially. I know the DPW is involved with the process when we put together our prioritized list to tip. So I know Travis Brown from DPW is familiar with the process. We outline it in there as well, but
Okay, I see it now.
you know, I know there's been some interest in the town and maybe DPW prioritizing some of these roads where they think they could access these funds for improvements, and you know, we certainly open to discussions at any
Okay.
point. We could help move along a project.
Thank you.
Final question, the public meeting next month, you right in that? Is that a meeting for our group? I mean,
No,
the
it's-
planning board?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that just for like a minute or so.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it would be a public forum for the master plan to obtain public input about all the chapters.
Okay.
Transportation, housing, just everything, economic development, open space, recreation. And we put on these public forums frequently for communities, and they generally run about 2 hours or so. Some communities have them starting at maybe 6 o'clock, and they go to 8 o'clock or so on a weekday. Some communities will do them on a Saturday morning. Generally speaking, I would say the average number of people that attend would be anywhere from 20 to 30 folks, on average in the size of a community like Hubbardston. So it'd be really nice if we could try and pinpoint a date and time, sometime later in April,
Okay.
to hold a public forum for the master plan. You really do need that public input from all the folks, and we draft up press releases. I started drafting up like a flyer that you could distribute. And I can work with Christina over that too, and send her some of the materials that I already drafted up too, if you'd like me to do that.
Why don't you do that? And, you know, we'll talk to some of the other boards too. It's not just us. You'd probably like to have select board and economic development, a couple of other boards around.
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't we have, Christina, you wanna help us survey what dates are available?
I can tell you what's currently on the agenda.
Okay.
But it would be a matter if we were going to invite someone like the select board or the finance committee or the economic development board, we'd have to put out a call to all those boards and find out when they're available.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Do you wanna do that?
At which point we wouldn't be able to give a date now.
Right, but the latter half of April is what you're thinking.
That's what I was thinking. You could do early May too if you wanted to. Once you start getting into June, I notice the attendance starts
Yeah.
going down a bit.
Okay. What works better
Especially
generally,
with
so the Saturdays or the evenings?
Oh, I think like evenings work perfectly fine.
Okay.
Because sometimes you get like
Conflicts with school activities and other things on a Saturday.
precisely.
Well, Christina can do a survey for us, right? Figure out,
If you
Can
have a
make a
list of even
suggestion.
3 dates or something we could propose, otherwise we're gonna be getting things all over the list. People will say Monday through Friday. You know what I mean? If the board would like to present, 3 dates or something and then say, to those boards or parties, you know, can you
Well,
pick from these three that way? Otherwise, we're gonna be getting people saying, I want this date, and then we'll have 15 dates before the
Well, let's
next.
go this way. Select board meets generally on Mondays. We meet
Yes.
generally on Wednesdays. Would you know what? Economic development meets
Meets
on Wednesdays
Wednesdays.
too.
Right.
I can't make Tuesdays.
So how about a Thursday? You know, everybody, Fridays are tough. How about a
Thursday would
Thursday?
work
A
for me.
Thursday evening? One of the last two Thursdays in,
Well, school vacation
April or
is
May?
is the 23rd, so how about the 16th?
okay, the 16th of April,
pretty
or
close.
what's the first
Be here, actually.
Thursday in May?
The first Thursday is the 2nd, and then it goes to the 9th.
Okay, how about, or the 2nd or the 9th? You wanna float those 3 dates?
That's
Would
a
that be
Saturday.
good? Knocking out the
April?
23rd because
No,
it's
May.
school
She
break
said
week?
May.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking May, April, I was looking at
April 6th. What's spring break? I don't have any.
April,
April
vacation is the
23rd.
12th.
April 23rd is spring break.
Oh,
April
yes,
vacation.
yep.
Okay, so we don't wanna do April
So we could do
23rd.
I said the
April.
9th.
What about the
We
16th?
could do April 30th. We could do May 7th.
Oh,
we
it's
could do
April
May
30th.
14th.
Oh, we could do April 9th, that's too.
Oh,
I won't
why don't
be
you,
here,
okay,
that's
if
fine.
we,
Oh, okay.
if we float April
care.
16th, April 30th, or May 2nd or 9th on a Thursday?
7th or 14th.
14th, yep.
It's
7th
May,
or
May
14th.
7th or 14th. Are the
Is
Thursdays.
viable dates, and you wanna save those Thursdays for us, and Christine will try to get back to you when she's talked to. So economic development, select board, who else would have an interest? I mean, you can always invite finance, I don't know whether they'd,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
finance, okay?
because we have services and facilities element, so they'd be important in that.
Okay,
And,
We could put a general call to all boards. Ryan often copies all boards when it has to do with something that
That way
involves the
nobody's
entire
left out.
town. That way
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah, it should go
accidentally
out.
leave
Yeah.
someone out.
should go out to everybody, but see if we can get a consensus on one of those 4 dates that the main boards can make it.
Oh, man.
When does finance meet usually?
I don't know. I can check.
I just hope it's not Thursday, if they're important. Well, can you check right away?
I'm looking right now.
Okay,
Excuse
hang on.
me.
Let's just have that answer, because I don't wanna propose 4 dates and finance can't make any of them.
Fine. That's fine.
Well, their last meetings was on a Tuesday. I don't know if they always do it on a Tuesday, but
Oh.
they have done it on a Tuesday in the past.
Okay. We don't have a candidates night or anything on those nights that we're aware of.
I can check at the general calendar one moment.
Let's just take that minute and see if we can. So the chapters we'd be discussing are basically all of them, or?
all of them.
So
And
you,
basically there are about 8 chapters
Yep.
that we'd be talking about. And we'd have a question for each chapter.
okay,
That hits on a question about housing that the breakout groups could discuss. One question about economic development, try to make it all encompassing, that the breakouts could discuss, and so forth and so on. So probably have about 8 questions, and would give the breakout groups like about an hour to discuss them, or 45 minutes to discuss them, and jot them down on an easel board, and present them to the group in its entirety later on. in the
so
evening.
you would need like a bigger space, like maybe a school gym or something, if we could do it.
Yeah, we'd need a fairly large space. I think we'd have probably 4 or 5 breakout groups.
Could possibly do it in the senior center, we could ask. They have tables in there. That would
They
just
do,
be-
that is a fairly big space. Yeah, we could do it.
And they would
Have
have
you've
more
seen our room?
ability for breakout,
Yeah,
and they can record in there with one of the cameras. The only conflicts are the 7th and the 14th. They're both library trustees night, but aside from that, there are no other meetings or events on those 4 days.
okay, so we got 4 days we're gonna try. And we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. We'll call you, John, okay?
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great. That'd be great.
Great. Well, thank you, as always.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, appreciate it.
We always learn so much when you guys come and present one of these chapters. It's very eye-opening and great.
So thanks, look
Okay.
forward to
I'll
seeing
send
you
a copy
again.
of that.
Hope we were able to give you some good feedback too.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we'll look for those PDFs, okay, and then we'll, post it in the Gardner News and make sure it's well circulated.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
You guys should all tag those dates to save, okay, in your calendars, because we are kind of the lead committee on this, so.
Is Whitney not here?
I actually got an email from her just before this meeting stating that she would prefer another date. She will not able to attend tonight.
Okay,
So signed by law.
All right, so we're on to the sign bylaw. You know, there was a response to our request for comments from the chair of the finance committee, who's a woman, an attorney. Her name is Susan Rain, or Rainey, how does she pronounce it, do you know?
I don't.
Rayne. Which is in the documents you have.
Yep.
Which is peppered in red. However, if you read it, I think there aren't a lot of substantive changes. It's more,
Grammar.
well, it is.
No, it's primarily
It's stylistic, and she says things which have some merit, which is like, well, you have definitions, and then that term doesn't appear anywhere in the document, or you have terms that appear in the document that aren't in the definitions. They're things that, at least in my book, are fixable.
Right.
Anybody else can comment on that. We do have some issues, though. Remember, where we left this hanging last time, there's a couple of things. Is we're supposed to be presenting this to the select board on the 16th, and letting them know whether we think we can get over the hill to get it on the docket. But one of the things that was hanging was are the signs, the sizes for the signs out of line. So you'll see there was one of the documents, but I bought other copies too. My husband and I just went out and measured some signs, because I know John was going to measure the one, and I thought, well, one isn't enough. You really need to look at all, to look at them. Oh, wait a minute. I have.
You have it on your.
So I have this.
computer.
My computer's broken.
This is in the documents, but if you can't find it, I'll pass it down.
Yeah, I don't want to touch that.
Quick. So I think
Just got
you
Oh,
can
okay.
recognize. You can recognize these signs. So here's what we measured. We live on Mount Jeff, so the ones around us. There's a home, occupation, serene stitches on our road. And if you look at this column, we measured the heights and widths, and then, as Christina pointed out, it's all about area, right?
Right.
So the third column, the yellow streak, is the actual area of these signs we measured, and then the blue at the end is what's allowed. Although it's a little bit confusing, but maybe you guys can help me out, and maybe we can figure this out. So, for example, if you look at this, the serene stitches is a home occupation in a residential district, and it is actually 6.5 square feet, and we've allowed 6 under the draft. Do you follow me?
Yes.
Okay, so then you have the Rod and Gun Club, and that is also actually in a residential district, but it's a big sign. It's 41 square feet.
Whereas only 10 square feet is allowed, right?
Yes, I'm trying to think why it's 10 square feet in the residential.
Because we said a 5 foot by 2 foot sign would be sufficient, so that was.
Oh,
10
because
square
it's a, yeah, 10,
I thought we updated it at the last meeting.
I should have, I was trying to do so much before I got here today, and I should have reviewed this again. But anyway, the GAF sign, the Country Hen sign, this is the one. Country Hen has quite a few signs, but these are the ones on Williamsville. They're quite a bit bigger. See, 25.4, and it is in residential, so we would only allow 10. So a GFA is about right. 33.8 is the actual area, and we would allow 30 for a regular. So you can see it. Now then the others, well, time and place is also bigger. It's on 68, if you jump down second from the bottom. It's 45, and again, commercial is only 20. So I think we have issues. We don't want to create a situation where we're making half the signs in town non-conforming, you
That's
know?
exactly
We
what I
wanna
was
be
afraid of.
business
That's
friendly.
what I was afraid of
That's
too.
why I
didn't
wanted
wanna do
to-
that.
So there are actually two problems. One is that I see. One of which is, you know, originally we added last time the concept of the, and Christina put it in the document, of the, what I call ladder, you call, what else was,
No, I put ladder sign.
a ladder sign, you know,
Yes.
the gateway signs, think of the gateway signs as you're entering, Moreland Green, or what's the name of that? Is it Moreland, you know,
Madison Green.
Madison Green, or
Yep.
you're entering, but the big ladder signs are these, the Pizza Palace, Breezy Corner, Hubbardston Crossing. So these are big signs, and they should have their own grouping. And I think, what Christina proposed was, well, maybe what you wanna do is have an overall size limit, but you could also have each sign individually in that ladder be as big as you know, there is the other signs. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing is, which is what Susan pointed out, is that you also need, you need your name on that gateway sign, but you also need it over the store. So we need to allow two signs, and so there's some issues there. And I think we could work on it. We could incorporate a lot of her changes, and we could fix like the definitions things, but these
Right,
are really some issues that need debate.
So how do we accommodate that? I don't wanna say we grandfather all the little signs, that way if somebody new comes in, they don't get the same opportunity.
Right, well,
So,
it is an issue, and what I was trying to talk to the street people is maybe we need to create a category for, you know, commercial signs on the arterial streets and list them, or, you know, I don't know, it's Williamsville, it's 68, I mean, the signs we have just wouldn't be big enough.
The overlay district is what we really need
So
here, but we're
yes.
just not there.
But is there,
Can we specify a specific road?
we could specify existing businesses on these roads, or, I don't know, I mean, I don't have the answers to these. I'm just telling you where we are with this sign bylaw, and I hate to, with all the work that's gone into it, not
Hold
get
it up.
over these impediments and get it to town meeting. But,
should we ask any input from any of the other boards of their opinions?
well, I think
We've solicited input. And
I think
what
this
we've
is
gotten so
our-
far.
You just
She's
got
the
that
head
one.
of the finance committee.
Right.
I'm not sure if it made it to the finance board. I'm not sure, but I do know that she was the one queried and she's the one who responded.
I mean, I think this is really our problem to solve.
Yes.
Maybe
Right.
there's an expert out there that could help us,
Yeah.
but I think, so, I mean, we can start from the bottom, from the top of this list and try to work down. For regular signs in residential neighborhoods, the home building signs,
See, the residential one is the toughest one to do because we don't want big signs popping up everywhere in the whole residential zone.
Right.
You know, the
Right.
commercial in the town center, right off the bat, we can see we need to increase the allowed area.
let's pick the low-hanging fruit here,
Yeah.
all right? So GFA is one that's right in the middle of town, and it's 33, and we go to 30, so we could round this up
35.
to at least 35, or, I don't know, I think that's a very nice sign.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't measure all the others in town. We also have, okay, so if we round that up to 35, I think with Serene Stitches, which is basically just a residential road, why do I have 6 there? Is that wrong? Is that
No,
my
it was
misprint?
discussed between 6 and 10, but no decision was made.
6 and 10. I wouldn't have trouble going up to 10 on a regular residential street. I don't know whether other people would.
I have no problem with that. But
You know the Serene Stitches line? Nobody ever goes up Mount
So the
Jeff,
signs
probably.
wouldn't be in conformity then, would
But it would be like, you know, the plumber,
No.
it's a nice sign. Just
oh,
trying
yeah,
to,
this one would. If we went up to 10, this would be okay.
That would be all right.
so we wanna make 10 for residential?
Make them take your
All right.
sign down.
No, every existing sign has to be
These are-
grandfathered.
Right.
These are
It's
square
fine. I
feet,
think we
right?
need the overlay districts.
Right.
But
So do you
'cause I
want to
don't wanna
do,
say everybody in residential can have a 30-foot sign, you know?
Right.
see the rod and gun and the country hen. Rod and gun is a really big sign. In the
They also
country-
that's where they put their information up for events.
I mean, it would be grandfathered, but I tell you, the country hen sign does not look out of place at all.
No, it doesn't. It's a nice sign.
Well, the
Um,
thing is because it's an agricultural business, but it happens to be in a residential zone.
Right,
So the situation that we have, the oddity here is that we have some agricultural businesses where it makes perfect sense when you just look at them by themselves and say,
Mhm.
sign looks good.
That's why we need an overlay.
But the issue here is the fact that we do have some agricultural industries as an example here, but I mean, the Rod and Gun Club is something different. It's not an agricultural, it's a setting from a social environment where people get together and so forth.
is that
But
a
again, it's inside
nonprofit?
of.
Rod and Gun Club?
No, no, okay.
I don't know.
I do think we have to be more restrictive in the residential zone, with the thought process being that eventually there will be an overlay district to correct these areas and make them into.
I agree. I mean,
Well,
the
another approach we could take is special permitting for certain signs that exceed those signs. You know? And we have that right, where you, they would
Right,
have to
we
do
do.
a site analysis, they would have to do.
present the rationale for it.
Well, the rationale, because it's in a residential district.
No. Present the rationale for why you are requesting a special permit, is what I'm saying.
Because it's in
Within
residential-
a residential
residential
district,
district.
exactly.
Right.
Larger by special permit
Only,
based
yes.
on,
That's not a bad idea.
Point of order, Madam
Yes.
Chair. Can I check other communities? Every place I've looked at sign bylaws, there's never been the concept of a special permit. So I wanna make sure it's legal before we try and, especially since we're so close to that.
It's absolutely, I think it's a good thing, just to make sure that we're
Yeah, I
safeguarded
just
from that
don't want,
perspective.
because if we try and push this through at the last minute, then we run up against legal, we're gonna have no way to get it on the warrant
Yeah.
in time.
well, we could check that out. I think the other way you can do it is you can name, existing businesses on these major roads.
Well, the existing
and-
businesses are grandfathered regardless, correct?
Well, they are and they aren't. If you change the business to a different kind of business, does a sign get grandfathered with it or not? I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you would have to exempt the road not just for existing businesses. If you were exempting a road, it would have to be exempt for the whole road, not just for existing
But
businesses.
then that encompasses all of the residential areas on those major roads. That's the
No.
issue.
Right. Well, if we're saying like 68 and 62, and we're going to exempt those two roads, then it should be the whole road, not just existing businesses on those roads, because otherwise we're not encouraging new business to come in. We're just allowing the existing businesses, which are already grandfathered, to continue to be grandfathered.
Which is why the special permit would work better.
Exactly. If that's allowed. I agree. I think a special permit in a residential zone for specific exemptions is a great idea if it's allowed.
And it gives you more control, and you can actually, you can see what's going on. So if it was if it wouldn't look good to have a huge sign that they wanna put up on a residential, the planning board would have a say in that.
I think Christina raises a legitimate question. I haven't really thought too much about
Right,
the
right.
signs, but it is a difficult situation that we have. And you're right about you don't want to discourage business, but we're not at the point where we can rezone right now.
Right.
Those. And there is a cry for a better law.
Which is
so-
why I don't want to just see us say, okay, we're going to allow 30-foot signs in all residential areas, because that's
Right.
not what anybody wants. We're
Right.
just trying to accommodate these one-offs that we know we're going to fix eventually.
Okay,
So-
all right. So let's see if we can do that. Can you check on that for us?
Mhm.
Okay, and then let's deal with, because we do have other things I want to get to too. Let's deal with the concept of the ladder signs, all right? The Pizza Palace, the Breezy Corner, the Hubbardston Crossing, you see the signs here, 79, 70, 73.
Right.
And this doesn't even make a lot of sense, because we didn't have what's allowed? I was using Gateway, and they're clearly not Gateway. They're gonna be a new category, right?
Right.
And she's created that,
The other
so,
one is, you don't have it on your list, is the post office. That's a large sign.
There's a bunch of more large signs around
Right.
town.
the post office, yeah, I didn't measure that sign. Where would the post, it's not a ladder sign though, because it's only one business.
Right.
But it's a good sized sign.
Is it a category that would,
I don't know.
like school signs,
I don't know if they have, I don't know if they have a federal standard for their signs.
I
don't
think
know.
we need to up the square footage of both town center and commercial, and then I think we need to create that other category of ladder sign and allow those to have even more square footage than the regular signs.
Okay, and maybe post office sign wouldn't be a gateway sign, would it?
No, because it's
No.
not. I don't
Right.
believe. I don't believe so
No.
because you're not.
No,
it's
a
not.
primary sign,
right.
that's how.
A permit. Okay. All right, so, John,
Yes.
give us some idea. What do you want to, right now in the commercial district, it's 30 square feet. And as I say, the GFA sign, just to give an eyeball point of reference, is 33. But you're saying like the post office would be another one. How high do you think that should go?
So time and a place isn't a ladder one either, right? That's a primary sign, the time and the place?
Yes.
Okay, because I would think we should make sure that the existing ones fit into the requirement. So if, we're looking at that's almost 50 square feet, then I would say we want to make sure that we say 50 square feet is acceptable in both the town center and the commercial zones.
Well, like the Hubbardston Crossing one, that was a lot of, they paid for that sign and put it up. It was approved by the building inspector's office quite a few years ago.
Yes.
And then the building inspector went back and told them it was too big.
Yeah.
After they already had it installed, and they had to change
Yeah.
the outlay of it. So it's,
The ladder signs need to be their own category, and those are
Right,
going to have
right.
to include more square footage than even the
Right,
primary
right.
signs. But I think that if we're going to do it, we should make sure that the existing signs that we're okay with are included. So,
unless we're gonna grandfather those and then not go any bigger than a certain size.
right, but if we think the time and the place sign is an acceptable size, then that should be acceptable for everyone, not just
Right.
right.
So 50 square feet for town center and commercial
That would be my
is a suggestion. Is that-
suggestion.
Other people, how do they feel about that? And leave residential at 10?
Yes, I think because we're going to grandfather the existing businesses, and we're going to have the assumption that in the future we'll create commercial overlays, which
Okay,
will
so
allow
10
them.
with special permit
Yeah,
for
if-
larger,
yeah, if
But
if
the
we
Rose
can
Gun
do it.
Club would be grandfathered.
Correct.
The country hen.
And then
would be
hopefully one
grandfathered.
day, maybe that area would be commercial overlay or whatever.
Right.
Okay,
Which it is
all
a
right,
large
and then what do we
commercial.
want to do for, take a look at these ladder signs here. So you got 79 square feet, 70, and 73. So that does look like about,
So I'd say, 80, because I think the Hubbardston Crossing sign is the biggest one we've got, and that would fit in that. So if we went to 80 for the ladder signs, and then said nothing taller or bigger than that.
okay. So another question, so this is what we'll, Christina, you have this? So 50 square feet for commercial and town center districts, 80 for ladder signs, 10 for residential signs, and then put the special permit, and we'll all try to get some sort of wording worked out for that, if it's allowable.
I just found out that Bedford and Springfield both permit special permits for anything that deviates from there.
Okay.
Perfect.
There you go.
Great.
Perfect.
Sorry,
Great.
I figured I'd look at
Oh,
it
no,
so we didn't
thank
have to
you.
come back.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Chapter 40 very clearly states what the purposes of.
Right, and it
Okay.
says the zoning bias. I just had to make sure that
Yeah.
it could be done.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do
That's
you
perfect.
want to say with the special permit, it's 10, but with a special permit and put an upper limit on that? So with a special permit, it could go up to 50, for example?
I would be fine with leaving it open-ended.
Yeah, me too.
Because it would
Okay,
really
okay,
depend.
open-ended, all right.
If it was the country hen versus if it was on Geordie Lane, I wouldn't want.
Okay, all right.
Because we can grandfather the ones that are there now.
Correct.
Right. Right, all right. So we're gonna come back on the 16th. No, what's our next meeting?
The 18th.
The 18th. With the reworked draft.
Yep.
I'm gonna work with Christina to try to incorporate what seems reasonable about this lady's comments. We're gonna try to put in this new table with the special permit.
Yep.
And we're going meanwhile to the, select board
Right.
on the 16th. Shall I
Right.
tell them we're gonna still try to make this deadline?
Yes, I think
I
we
think
should.
so.
We
I
think
we
you
should
can do
try.
that? All right, okay.
One thing I wanted to mention, when we talked about the commercial with the square footage, some of the businesses are required to have state and federal law notifications, like they sell cigarettes, the alcohol laws, those are all, they have to put those in the windows, which takes up part of that square footage.
Okay.
Is that something we want to think of?
Well, we could say in
In what
addition
way?
to any state or federal
Not
required
include their
signs.
signs, but some of them are large.
Because we said 50% of the window. He's saying if the half of that 50% has to be covered by federally required signs, you're only relieving 25%
Because they come out with
left.
the cigarette laws, the lottery, all
Yeah.
those other things that they post. I just saw them, I went around and looked,
Yeah.
and I saw them. So,
I mean, I think
Oh.
that at this point in time, you take in consideration what you have, and
Yeah.
you work with the real estate that is given to you. And if it does, I mean, my personal opinion is that you have to prioritize what is required by law.
Right.
Anything extra
right.
is where you can play around with.
Because actually, the ones I looked at, they're pretty close anyways. I'm just thinking down the road,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, we can leave it with, you wanna leave it with the 50%? I don't have a problem with 50% including,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
excluding, all right, we'll leave it. We'll
I just wanted
know
to
that
mention
it's
it, that's all.
we're gonna get complaints about this law, because this is a very difficult, this is an intersection of a lot of things, so
Yeah.
not everybody's gonna be
Yeah.
Right.
It is-
happy, and there are gonna be amendments we're probably gonna have to come up with, but the other thing is, do you want an overall height limitation on ladder signs?
You mean like if it was 2 feet wide and 40 feet high? That's not a good
To-
idea.
Right, right.
If you look at the total size, height, 9 feet, 12, 4, this is my last, this column, total height. These are the signs, but not the distance off the ground. So it's 10, so if you were gonna, the pizza sign is 22 feet,
To the highest point.
no, that's 20, yeah, I guess
It
that's,
says here it's 87 feet off the ground.
yeah, from the
inches.
top.
Inches.
Inches, I'm
Inches,
sorry.
yeah.
So it looks like-
height off the ground, it's
Yeah.
22 inches off the ground,
It
it's
looks-
total height.
It looks
Okay.
like the highest sign here is 14.9 feet high. So if we set a limit at 15 feet
15,
high,
okay.
then
Okay.
we're covered.
Okay, let's
There you
put a
go.
maximum height of 15 feet.
And that's this one
That
here.
way you're
That's
covering
the
all of them.
Jack
Jack
Russell
and most
sign.
in the height.
Yeah.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah, okay, is that okay with
Thank you.
everybody
Yes.
too?
Yeah,
works for
Maximum
me.
height.
Yep.
All right, there's probably, I want to add, need to look at the gas station signs. The gas station signs are not all LED signs, like the one in Holden, it's a ground lit sign that, so we have to make sure that we don't just have gas station LED signs, but like gas, that was one of her points. And the other one is I want to do something that allows a light to be a gas station, a light, a sign on a gas station canopy sign, because there's always gonna be one, a canopy, and we should make that clear. So those are the
Canopies
other,
are in there, under, page 6.
is it on there?
Canopies are.
Yes.
Canopy, maybe should put just, does canopy to everybody else mean gas station too? Are there other
Yes.
kinds of canopies?
Means
That's
any
what it means?
structure that has a canopy on it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we've got, let's see how far we can get for next time, all right? We've got,
All right.
made some good decisions tonight.
Yep.
And I want to get to some of our other business. So we're going on to, the next thing on is operational procedures, which has been a pet of project of Christina's for months. And, I think if everybody got a chance to read it, there's things in there that we're supposed to be doing that I didn't even know we were supposed to be doing. So, so it was very helpful. Do you want to talk about a little bit about your process for creating it? And
Okay, I'll be honest, when I started this, it was because I had gotten into the planning board and I really didn't know what a planning board was. And I realized that there were probably people coming onto the board who may not know what a planning board was or what it did. So, and there's the concept that I won't be around to be the admin forever. And so it was a concept of making sure that no matter who came in or left, they had a book by which they understood exactly what we were supposed to do. So I did the general stuff like organization and membership, which all of you sort of know by rote, but I'll put in the alternate board member. I also put in the board members assigned to other boards and committees, because that's not as easy to know. I mean, it was well known by our former chair, but that I think he took over those extra committees, so that when he left, I was like, wait a minute, what committees do we have to have somebody on? And so I wanted to make sure that became sort of common knowledge. So that was on page 4. And then board member standards of conduct. Alice found a document in another town that basically outlined how the board is supposed to act around each other and around the community at large. And we thought it would just be common sense knowledge, but just Also, if we ever have turnover of board members, we want to make sure that there's sort of something that we can point to and say, please make sure that you're following the standards of conduct, just in
Yep.
case things ever got out of hand. Meeting procedures. There was a lot of discussion in the last several years about Robert's rules. We don't technically follow Robert's rules. It's very general, just the concept of call to order, how meetings go, votes, etc.
Thank
But
you.
there's a general standard, and I didn't want anyone saying, oh no, we follow Robert's rules, because we don't. I read through it, and we don't follow Robert's rules.
That's under our town, right?
No,
The
it's
charter?
not actually.
It's under state?
No, that's only for town meetings.
No, I mean, where did you find the information for that?
For Robert's rules, it's actually a book.
Oh, okay.
It's at the moment it's 180 pages. It's revised about 9 different editions, so you can find it online if you want to look at it.
Yep.
But it's a very comprehensive concept of how meetings are supposed to be run. We do as I said, the general call to order, votes, etc. And I did put that in here.
Right.
But there are certain rules, like the chair isn't supposed to get involved in discussion. They're supposed to run the meeting. They're not allowed to get involved in their own items of discussion because they're supposed to be the arbiter of the meeting, not necessarily running it or providing input. So we don't do that because we have a small board. We want to make sure everybody's involved and
Right,
everybody's
right.
heard. So we don't do that. So I didn't want to put in here, oh, we follow Robert's rules. So I put in just the concept, and I did mention Robert's rules, but we don't necessarily go by that 100%. Special meetings, I gave general concepts. But I didn't get too specific, especially on things like executive session, because if that changes, that's a matter of law. So I wanted to make sure that there was pointers that said, if there's an executive session, please look at the current OML. Because if it's updated, we never want to find ourselves in violation. And then the big one was responsibilities of the planning board. And to figure out what we were responsible for all across the gamut, I went through every single town document, the charter, the general, and the zoning bylaw, and I just Control F, meaning find, for planning board. And you'll notice that, we're responsible for the special permit granting authorities, wireless communication special permits, floodplain special permits, aquifer protection special permits, senior residential development special permits. There's a lot of here that I'd never heard of. So I wanted to make sure they were in here so that we had the understanding, because there are entire articles in our bylaws regarding these matters, and the planning board is the ones that are supposed to be in charge of this. Also, we're supposed to be in charge of special permit monitoring, which means we issue the special permit, but we need to follow up. We need to get in touch with the solar fields and find out, do we have the annual reports? Have we inspected these places? Have we got in touch? Like, I found out the one on Pitcherville Road isn't actually owned by the company that originally did that. I'm following up now and sending them copies of the special permit, but they're like, oh, well, do we have to follow that? We're not the company that signed that. I'm like, yes, you do, or this decommissioning fee isn't yours, and we're going to have to, get involved with the fact that you're generating outside the bounds of the special permit that was agreed upon. So they're getting back to me, and we're keeping the discussion open. I haven't heard anything that I said, you're welcome to come before the board. In the meantime, they're like, oh, we're just going to send you some documents, see if that's enough. And when they get me those documents, I'll bring them before the board, and
Thank you.
we'll review them. But that made me a little bit like, we should really be monitoring, especially
Right.
our big special projects. Gravel pit monitoring is supposed to be up ours. In the general bylaws, it does say that, even the ZEO has limited authority over gravel pits. They're supposed to come before us to be talked about. Rate of growth review. I think it's every 5 years or so, the rate of growth bylaw in the zoning bylaw expires. And every year, the planning board is supposed to report to the town meeting and the board of selectmen whether or not we're pushing the limits of our rate of growth. And if it is, we're supposed to revise the bylaw so that we can encourage more growth. We haven't been pushing the bylaw. If you guys read the final annual report, out of the 28, we did 6 in the last year. So we're not pushing that.
It
too much.
expires on its own,
In 2021.
21. So
So
we need to
next
think
year.
about whether we want it, whether we don't want it. You don't have to have a rate of growth bylaw, but
Okay.
at some point in the 90s, it was a big issue around here,
Yeah, when they
I
were
hether.
building all those developments.
Right.
Right.
Probably should though after looking at Rutland.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Then there's document review. Obviously the operational procedure is something you guys can completely change without even a public hearing. You guys can just vote this in as long as we're here. Housing production plan is something that we just finished, but it's supposed to be up in another 10 years. Master plan, again, you're supposed to do a 5-year review to say, are we actually doing what we implemented? And then another 5 years later to write a new one. Subdivision rules and regulation, earth removal rules and regulations, planning board fees. Also, the planning board sort of taken it on itself to do a zoning bylaw review. The charter only provides that the Board of Selectmen are responsible for reviewing the general bylaws and the charter. There's nobody actually in charge of reviewing zoning bylaws. And since I don't know if I talked to Alice about this, if you want to at least write it in here, you guys can vote to take it out if you want. But every 5 years or so, just say, we're going to look through the zoning bylaws, not just the fun ones, like, solar or marijuana, but all of them to make sure they're still valid. So I put that in here as well. We also have to provide a forum for certain public hearings. I mean, as we learned, like the Streeter Road thing, and then the community outreach hearing for the marijuana. We have to do review of zoning bylaw. That was that. And so those are all the responsibilities of the planning board. So obviously we have a lot on our plate. My concept going forward with that would be the concept of maybe creating a calendar and saying in the month of December, we got to remember we have an annual report due. In the month of this, we got to make sure we're doing this. Just that kind of concept. I know that Ryan's been doing that for the Board of Selectmen just to keep things moving so that we don't get to the end of the year and go, well, we didn't do any of this, But hopefully, this will help just at least gear people's minds towards the concepts of what's supposed to be done. And then it's application procedures, which I'm still working on checklists for every one of them like I did for Scenic Road. And then the next 3 or 4 pages are really just for people in my position, how to do payments, how to do accounts, because of course I spent 6 months working on those accounts. I don't want to see them get out of hand again. Agendas, meetings, board member change, including, making sure they get your laptop, change your password, that sort of thing. And then that's it. So.
I think that is awesome.
It's really a huge effort.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of work.
I have
Tom.
couple of things.
So needed too.
Yes.
And I don't know, other people can do this too.
I said it was very needed.
Very needed, really good. So just in a rapid fire order, we have a rule that I didn't see in here, and maybe it's here, but it's that rule that you gotta be paid up on your taxes before you can file a permit.
That's on our application forms, yes.
It's on the application form. You don't need to put it in here?
No.
Because it says it on the form.
It depends, it's a form by form. I'm not sure if it's required of every application in town.
Okay,
I don't know if that's
all right, if
actually
the
a-
form requires it, I'm
So
wondering
it's a
where that
form
came from.
required.
There's all these things that have floated around
I
and
think I heard it.
caught my attention, and it's like, well, where did that come, Okay, so that's good, so if it's on the form. Page 3, in your 4th paragraph, it says, ends with, in the even, that there is a lack of admin, it's supposed to be event.
Okay.
Just a little typo. Same thing, page 4, under 1.5, section 1.5, board member standards.
Mm-hmm.
The last word in the second paragraph should be community, not committee. And other residents of the planning board members will conduct themselves respectively towards each other and other residents of the community, right? Just a little typo. Let's see, what was this? I really have very few things. With the posted public, with the public hearings and
I'm sorry,
notice to
what page are you on,
abutters.
please?
It's on page 8. Unfortunately, I wrote this fast. The abutters, when you send messages to the abutters, notice to the abutters, it does have to be certified mail in most cases, doesn't it?
It depends. It depends on if it's a public hearing or if a public meeting.
Can you put a note in there about the certified mail, when it's required and when it's not?
Because it changes. The only problem is this is MGL. Like with special permits, it has to be a certain way. And then with scenic roads, it has to be a certain other way. You don't have to have it certified for scenic road. For community outreach hearing, it doesn't necessarily, according to the MGL, have to be certified, but some of the people do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little hesitant to put MGLs in this in case they change.
Well, you
I don't
might
want you
list-
guys to have to check.
You might just put
The
a little
reference in here.
caveat, check for,
Okay.
if certified mail is required.
There you go.
Because it always, it's kind of one of those gotcha things if you didn't do it. Something Christina pointed out is later in the agenda, is that there are these trainings that are offered for planning board members that we're supposed to be
Supposed to do.
trying to attend at least once a year. I don't think we've done enough of that, you know, but,
Would it be feasible to see if we could have a class here for the
Well, we're
entire
trying to do
board?
that for the
we're
overlay.
trying to do that, but the advantage of if we can.
I need dates in April from all of you.
Yeah, now we've
Yeah.
just committed a couple of them to somebody else, but.
We were looking for Saturdays for this class.
But on the
Yes.
trainings, if you go to, they're the big statewide trainings that are in the region, they have breakout groups.
Right.
And so if you went as a team, planning boards, maybe 3 of us or something to that Saturday, you could go 10 different breakout sections and you'd have a broader based knowledge.
Right.
So anyway, she's put some information in that, and then there's one coming up we'll talk about later. And I thought with the zoning bylaw review, which she was talking about, which is page 11, it really ought to be not every 5 years you try to plow through the whole thing, because it's just too hard. You
It's
never
too
get
much,
to it.
yeah.
So it ought to be a rolling revision. And maybe we can modify that language to say an annual review of various sections with the
Intent
goal
of the
of
whole
completing
thing
the
in 5
whole
years?
thing in the 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had like a total number of bylaws and then we divided it up over the 12 months for the
Right.
5. So
Yeah.
it was 60 months. So we say
Right.
we review one a month for 60 months or whatever
Right.
it is.
Right, so then in her calendar, you know, oh, well, this is year 1, we're supposed to be doing, you know, the first
These
3
yeah,
sections.
right.
And yeah, it
Yep.
would be a better way to do that, because otherwise it's just overwhelming.
Yep.
Um,
Well, they don't have to be rewritten, all of them. Some
Just
of them
reviewed.
are just
Reviewed.
Right.
Yeah, a review year 1, review year 2, we ought to do that. And then there's one more typo, very small, I think, on page 6, page 16 of 11. Shouldn't that be 11 of 16? Anyway, it's the second from the last page. It's whichever is later and not under, it should be until, right here. Until they are approved.
Oh, there's a couple of pages that say that.
So,
The 15 of 11, 14 of
I
11.
think I still think, you know, we're working on
It's
this.
funny because
but-
I printed from the same thing and mine's 16, so I think it's Google. It
Right.
hates me.
Right,
So-
16 or
Just need- but this
17.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
All right, so
I'm
it's
sorry,
still a
where's the
work in,
under?
it's,
Yeah,
it's,
15 of 11 there. It says 16 of 11 there.
Right, right.
right here,
17 of 11. Weird.
until they are approved. I really appreciate gathering these things,
Oh,
because it's
that's-
all the
that was
things
awesome.
that we
A lot
don't
of-
know,
yeah.
like
We
the
definitely
Muller
needed
rule,
that.
Mullen
We're
rule
coming
is
in, we
here,
didn't have a clue.
Yeah,
it's
no clue.
so
Okay.
incredibly
So should I put
valuable.
it on the agenda for next time to have it approved, or?
Sure.
Sure, and we can all read it one more time then, right?
Right.
All right, one more, I mean, it's important, it's worth another quick read through.
Well, with this, a new board, if something happened.
Or, I mean, if you really wanted to approve, you can,
Approve it.
would
with
you
the-
rather have us approve subject to those changes?
I can do it then, or I can just put it on the next agenda. It's up to you guys.
I make a motion that we approve with the presented changes.
Okay,
I second that.
further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye. You know?
Yeah, it keeps things from clogging up too much on the next agenda. Okay.
Well, we're
New
gonna do a
business, I
lot.
have one item of new business, because it just came in today, and it's a letter from Ryan, who says that they're finally, getting on top of the tax title properties, and they have some ideas and some priorities, and they wanna meet with me next week. So I'm gonna meet with them, see what they have to say. If any of you are dying to come, you know, I don't have it set up, I gave him some dates that I'm around. You want me to call you?
It's during the day though.
Yeah, it'll be during the day.
Yeah, give me,
Ryan's
I'll
hours.
go with,
Would anybody else like to go and listen?
Send the date and time if I can make it.
All right.
If not,
yeah,
then-
same thing.
If
Well, the
not,
other thing
then
is
please
we
let
have
me
too
know.
many
If
members
3 of you
there.
are showing up, I have to post an agenda.
Yeah, I don't need to go. I'm
I
good.
don't need to go if you're gonna, if,
Okay, I'm
All right.
just letting you know
Let-
that
let me know if
because you guys are
Francois can't
discussing an
make it, I'll
actual
try to go.
matter of the planning board, this is, something that would be.
Yeah, it would be
if he can't go, let me know,
okay,
okay?
all right,
Having-
all right,
having
I'll
two
send it
people
out to
go-
both of you and,
Thank you.
we do have to be mindful of that rule for sure.
Yes.
Right, we don't wanna break any rules.
But I don't think I have any greed. You know, the thing is, what you guys bring to it that I don't have is a better knowledge of the town and where these places are. So it might be valuable to have somebody with that knowledge. Okay, old business, nothing under gravel pits right now. Solar, I want to discuss solar, but under the bylaw revision, there's nothing on 91, there's nothing on 147. Affordable housing, I don't have an update. You didn't hear that they finally got those requests for proposals done, do you?
I have not heard.
I will find out, but I don't have any information right now for the
Request for proposal.
request for proposal for the affordable house lot.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So, all right, so now we need to do the bylaw. Francois and I are meeting with the board with the March 16th, on March 16th, and one of the things on that, there was a letter sent, I don't know whether you've heard back from Ryan, requesting to be on there.
Yes, you guys have been allowed. That he asked. I know that I mentioned to him casually that you might want to look at more of the two items that you already presented to speak about on that night. He said if you could try to keep it to around 30 minutes.
Okay.
He'd appreciate it because they have a full agenda as well.
30 minutes is very generous. I think we'll try to do it.
But because I know that you wanted to speak about this and then possibly the solar and then possibly,
Right.
so I told him, and he said just if you could try to. I mean, he doesn't anticipate it's going to stay, but within reasonably 30
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, so, and then then the next thing on this is then we're trying to back this all back so we can make the warrant deadlines and everything, so the
Right.
meeting would have to be April 1st for the public. So we've done the sign bylaw, we were working on it, and I think we have enough there to present it with those changes on the 16th. And then we'll come back and talk to you, you'll see that on the 18th when we meet again. It's too bad the meetings aren't in the other sequence, but, so, now,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Madam Chair, with that point of order, April 1st, are we in agreement that we will do a public hearing on that date? Because I have to start getting that posted.
What day of the week is that?
That's a Wednesday.
It is our Wednesday. Anybody, April Fool's Day?
So we passed the no unicorns bylaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already have it as a planning board meetings on the calendar, so I'm good.
Okay,
The
April
Metropolitan.
1st, public hearing on our proposed bylaw changes.
Yes,
Yes, okay, so now we need to decide
the other proposed changes.
whether we need to talk about I guess we're down to where we want to do the solar bylaw, right? We have the master plan. Where are we? Solar, here we go. All right, other proposed changes. All right, so I have a whole thing on this, so bear with me. I don't know.
While you put that together, can I quickly just interject? I did receive an email back from you
Yes.
regarding to the change that I think we discussed last time around, that is for the associate member. In all fairness, I do understand.
Right.
This has to be done in combination with the
Board of
amendment
Selectmen.
of Board of Selectmen, which I would therefore propose that when we meet with the Board of Selectmen, that be a point to be presented.
Okay.
However, I think that it makes sense. I thought I had presented to all of us here, and I can do this again afterwards, the proposed wording.
No, there was the concept, the problem is that the former chair had already presented something as a bylaw change that included the resident. The problem is, it's not illegal for us to make something in the bylaw that contradicts the general bylaw, but it's technically bad practice for the town if we say, we're gonna propose a bylaw that says that the associate member has to be a resident, but
That's
the
not
general bylaw.
yeah, that's
Okay.
not what we're proposing here. What we're proposing
Okay.
here is to have some draft of
Okay.
what we are going to be presenting as as the associate membership requirement from a residence perspective,
Okay.
with the understanding that that can only be put into place if we are in sync with the Board of Selectmen,
Okay.
and make
both
sure
of
that
them would have to go through.
they would have to also put the wording, and both of them would therefore have to go through. But
Okay.
we are the ones who have to propose the wording,
Right,
which therefore kicks off what they would have to make potential changes to on their side.
okay,
Okay?
Yep.
So this
I'll
is
put that on
this
their
is the
agenda.
catalyst.
So you want me to request the inclusion as another point on their agenda
Yes,
that
please.
night? Okay.
And I
sorry.
think what we can say is just it's really just a small little section we will be adding to the bylaw itself.
We ought to have a handout with it, though, that's clear.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that what you got there?
Oh, okay.
And it's not the top, so it's just the things that are in red. And just for the, I mean, because we're in a public, I mean, not public, because we have the audience here that is on the video. It would just simply say there shall be one associate member who is a resident of the town of Hubbardston. That's really all it is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or some other legal
Oh, no, that's
way of
perfect.
putting
And
it
then,
together.
just when you go to the Board of Selectmen meeting, if you'd like, I'll look up the exact chapter it is in the bylaw, general bylaw, so you can mention
Right.
to them exactly what they would have to
Please.
amend.
Yep.
Okay, I'll
Right.
get that information to you.
Right. I just found this note from Ryan, I'm backtracking for a minute. It says, Sandy and I are ready to present some options to you for tax title foreclosures. Some of the opportunities are pretty strong. Multi-house type options with lots and land. If we
Lots
can
of
target, with lots of land, I'm sorry. If we can target some of them, perhaps we can gain the land and then sell to a developer.
For
Would like-
affordable housing.
Yeah, for affordable housing. So-
Could you give the background on this? Because we do have that $50,000 the planning board was voted with regards to improving affordable housing, and tax titles were specifically mentioned. So the TA and the accountant decided to look into the tax titles in town and present those to the planning board, so they might be coming before us to talk to us about.
Wonderful.
Right, and the
Great.
wanted thing that I wanted to also say is, Ryan thought there are some of these lots, the problem I have with this whole plan, which is kind of why I've been kind of like negative about it, is because the tie-up in land court is 5 years, and I don't want to wait 5 years on affordable housing. But he says there are some lots in town, and there is a state, Mass General law, that says if you have a landowner that's willing to cooperate, particularly if the taxes now exceed the value of the land, they can just deed it to you, and then it just becomes a title issue, and it's much quicker.
Oh.
So what we're going to try to do, I think, is target some of those things that could be done in closer, than by agreement,
Right.
and then maybe also fund one or two to go start on like that conveyor belt to the land court. So anyway, more. Stay tuned. But this is a good
Oh, that's
good
good.
thing. Okay, so I want to take on solar for a minute. So by way of background, at the last meeting, Francois proposed a 1-year moratorium on solar fields
Right.
to allow us a time to rewrite the bylaw and maybe create an overlay zone. And that was in response to concerns and complaints, mostly about potential impacts of the solar arrays that aren't adequately controlled by our bylaw. So anyway, I did some research, I did some thinking about the issue. I think I sent, did you all guys get a copy of the solar moratorium?
Yep.
That,
I think so,
that
yeah.
was passed in Athol, which was given to me last year at the seminar I attended. But after that was passed, what Athol did was they commissioned a study from Tufts that, I would print it out for you, but it is 106 pages, so I didn't. But I have it here if you want to see it. Well, actually, I have their study. They took all of these towns in Massachusetts, this group's from Tufts, all of the solar bylaws, 2 pages of towns, all the towns, and put together the best provisions. I mean, it's really an exhaustive kind of project, and they came up with 2 things. They came up with their version of the map, and we could do this. It's a superimposing, no wetlands, no peaks, rigid
Ridges,
lines, habitat corridors,
Water.
water resource areas. I don't know. There are about 10 different maps that are superimposed, and this was their final product. And so the suitable areas are in green, the unsuitable areas are in the gray. So we could do this kind of thing when we get around to reviewing the whole thing. But they also proposed a model bylaw. I looked at the bylaw, I compared it against our bylaw. About 30% of their bylaw is in our bylaw, and the rest of it is all things that have been added and expanded, and it's time for us to do that. But I asked myself, is there some quick fixes we could do instead, in lieu of the moratorium, because it's a moratorium. Ryan was like, he doesn't like it. He doesn't think the select board will like it because we're trying to develop revenue from commercial enterprises in this town. And actually, the four operating solar fields we have right now in town.
They are typically classified as 5 because 232 and 240 on Gardner Road are separate. But yes, all 5 of them generate about $92,000 in pilot revenue a year.
And that revenue, pilot is payments in lieu of taxes revenue, but $92,000 is important for Hubbardston. So there's that 92 that's coming in, but there's also one field fully permitted, which is 147, right? They're waiting. There's 95 Williamsville Road that we know is going to come online, and then we have the Tasto property. And
Potentially.
Potentially, right, 2 properties that were former gravel pits that are being considered. One is them, and one actually belongs to the town. We have this state study out on what to do with our pit. And in that also, the Marinellis consented to having their land considered, which is right there too. So there is some things going on. What the holdup right now is, so we're not likely to be bombarded with gravel pit or with solar fields anyway this year, is because there are a lot of grid restrictions. First of all, there's not the capacity in the lines, and the other thing is that what the state had done with their SMART program was they put out a proposal to build out so many megawatts, and it was over 4 years, and it got subscribed in 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're coming up, they're revising their next group of plans. It's called the SMART plan. And that new SMART plan also, they're offering the biggest incentives that the state is going to offer is for solar developers to put these arrays in brownfields and solar pits and land that otherwise isn't used. So there's some good reason to believe that, you know, those lands would be targeted.
As a matter of fact, if I may just quickly interject, there is actually some discussion about penalizing what is known as greenscapes. Greenscapes being areas that are currently green and that would be basically clear cut should they be used for solar. So the incentive is to use brownfields or areas that are open or large commercial areas. Sorry.
So that's right. So there's an incentive and a disincentive, right?
Yes.
So anyway, I came up with some areas that I thought we could look at and for some stopgap measures that might help. Francois and I sat down Sunday, we went through them, and we came up with a list of 5 things. So you don't have to agree with us, this is food for thought. I'll pass them down.
Is that the same one that was circulated?
Is this,
No.
I'm just making sure.
yes.
Okay.
I don't know, I was having trouble actually with my Chromebook, so maybe you've seen this, but anyway, excuse the paper. So anyway, the 5 things we came up with was, one, we could prohibit, and these are all drafted pretty much from using the new model bylaw, ALFL. We can prohibit solar arrays on hilltops, ridgelines, and hillsides. The second thing we thought we could do is there's all kinds of site plan review techniques which require sight line drawings and photographs to give the planning board and the public a better perspective of what the before and after would look like. So that's what 2 is about. The third thing we thought we could do is we could increase the minimum lot size. Right now our bylaw says you can put a solar installation on 1.8 acres. And maybe if you bumped it up to 5 or 10, you'd at least get them out of the neighborhood.
Right.
Which was, we've heard that complaint. The 4th thing on the back is to revise the setbacks. And the last thing would be to, again, it's our present bylaw allows, if you look at the stricken language at the bottom, existing vegetation shall remain in required setback areas, and then there's the whole that exempts the whole rule, right? Except where such vegetation would shade the solar energy system. And then you can clear the vegetation in half of the setback. So you take what was already, at least in my opinion, a minimum setback, 50, and you can clear the brush out of 25 of it and you're left with nothing, okay?
Right.
So I want to walk through these one by one, but I just wanted to tell you with the sightline stuff, I took it out of the model bylaw and then I sent it to Bill Murray to ask him, because I'm not enough of an engineer to really visualize what they were saying. So he sent it back to me today with how he would fix those provisions, which is this last page.
Okay.
All right, so shall I walk through it? Do you have a few minutes that you're willing to give me on this, or Francois can too? So the first one is add to general requirements And these would be where they would fit in our bylaws, right? 20.3.1A. A prohibition that says installations are prohibited on hilltops and ridge lines as well as any hillsides where they will be visible when completed from any public ways or neighboring properties, or could be considered to alter the scenic beauty of the hillside. And then I give you where this was from on the model bylaw. And I think that would prevent, that was at the essence of the Athol, the uprising in Athol, because they put the solar field on a hilltop where you could see it from.
Well, that's right at the top of the hill where
Right.
the meat place is there.
I mean, you could see it
You can see it from all over the community.
90%, yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't put erosion control in, and
No.
finally people had it. But that's what they put in now. You know, I don't know, this is not from a bylaw that has been passed, right? So I can't say it's past legal counsel and the Attorney General for bylaws, but it wasn't a model bylaw that was put out by Tufts in this group. So we could try it. The second section is this site plan review, and you actually should flip to the last page instead. So, you know, it's a special permit, and our special permit requires a site plan. And these would be criteria added to the site plan that they would have to come up with. So if you can, the blue is, again, the blue is Bill's, and the black was what they had in it. So basically, you'd have a Massachusetts registered landscape architect or professional. Let's see, a sightline presentation shall be conducted by the professional, drawing from any portion of public road or public ways within 300 feet or within sight distance of the installation, meaning the solar array, that would have the clearest view of the proposed facility, and from the closest side of each residential building within 300 feet or in sight of the most visible point of the installation. And they would depict those on the site plan by elevation and cross-section drawings. And they have to include all intervening trees, buildings, and other applicable objects. So you can see, you take what would be a level plan, and, you know, you'd have the, you know, they would have inserts of what you'd actually see from the elevations.
Right, which would be a lot more information.
Right, and a lot more than if you take somebody like me that's just looking at, you know, what the grade lines, you know.
Right.
And then there's a photographic study simulation. So I guess they can do this, which was really my question to Bill. But you take existing and proposed photographs from at least four perspectives specified by the special permit granting authority, which would be us, including from the nearest residential structures and of the areas that are most publicly visible. We get to pick them. And with technical explanation of how visualization was produced. Each sightline shall be illustrated in color photographs of what can currently be seen from any public way within 300 feet and are within sight of the installation. Each of the existing conditioned photographs shall have the proposed installation superimposed on top of it to show what would be seen from public roads if the installation was built. And then Bill added, you want to actually do that with 3 sets of sightline assessments to include winter conditions, trees, shrubbery without leaves, summer conditions in full leaf, and mitigation screening in winter conditions if applicable. And then he also added, color photo shall be a minimum size of 11 by 17, fit to the page, and shall be of sufficient photographic density to clearly depict the proposed development. A location plan shall be made part of the photo simulations to depict where they're taken from. So you tie in the photographs to the
Right.
plan. And then, of course, this has to be electronically submitted, which we're trying to get, which is the last point. So I don't know, you can kind of see how this might be much more helpful than what we have, which would require now, it is a plan, it is where the houses is, it is where this, but it's all like
Full flat.
2D, right?
Right,
Instead of
right.
3D.
And they have the capability of doing that
Right,
nowadays.
right, so that's what this is about, is just amending, we would just amend section 20.34 of the site plan review to require these drawings, to put this section in.
I do like this better than the moratorium.
Yeah, well, I think,
Is this
I
a
think it's
Band-Aid
much
where
more,
we still plan on reviewing the whole thing later?
Yes,
Or
we
is-
should.
Okay.
because they're actually now, we should do that superimposed plan thing,
Mm-hmm, I
which
like
is
that.
not quite the same, I mean, it isn't overlaid by law, but it isn't, it's different, you know, we're not,
Is it legal?
yeah, this is the maps that exist, so it shouldn't be so horrendously expensive to do, they all exist,
Right,
habitat
okay.
lands and, anyway, and then this minimum lot size, I have to tell you, the model by law was 5 acres minimum. Ours is 1.8, and then there was this line, if you look at the bottom line on this page, it said a minimum of 1, I don't know what this meant, but this is what it said. Because our present bylaw says a minimum of,
One contiguous acre?
yeah, this, yeah, a minimum of 1 contiguous acre must be available for siting.
So basically, I think indicating is that if you had 1 acre here, another acre over there, another acre over here, it's basically minimally, if you're putting all of your panels, it has to be at least in one of those acres. You cannot just simply say half an acre here and another half an acre. Say, for example, you have
okay.
20 acres in total. You cannot do
You can't
half
split
an
it up.
acre here, another half an acre
Okay.
here, another, it's sort of like a polka dot or.
Okay, so you had a wetlands going through the middle of it,
patchworking.
you couldn't
Exactly.
just surround it.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, I don't know, I don't know what you wanna do, but I think
I
1.8
think-
acres with this contiguous is confusing, and you could just say 10 acres, and then, I mean, it is a special permit process. You could say, no, we're not gonna let you divide it, you know, put half of it on one side of the wetland, and,
Sure.
but I don't know that 10 acres is a magic number.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, you
mean,
might
if-
wanna do 5, I don't know how
If
many.
it meets these other sightline things, I would be fine with 5 acres, but I just, we would have to meet those sightline presentation things.
But I think at this point in time, I mean, we do only have 1 acre.
1.8 acres.
1.8 acres as the minimum lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the question would be is can we increase it to something that is more reasonable?
Yes.
I honestly believe that most of the lots that we have here where they are planning on putting these in
Are
are
more than
typically
10.
30, 40 acres or anything of that
Right.
nature, which is fine.
Yep.
The problem with those, however, is where you have the sightline issue,
Mm-hmm,
because they are so big
Right.
right.
that you have a huge problem. So I think we need to also take into consideration, we want to potentially take this out of areas where this is going to be a big issue for their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
Right.
that I think might be, that might be a perfect balance. So a 10 acre plus a sight line
Mm-hmm.
takes care of the two
Yep.
at the same time.
Do you think 5 would be livable? Because if we put this in and vote on it,
Yep.
it still has to go to town approval at the
It
town
does.
meeting.
It certainly does.
I don't
So-
have a preference, I just,
Do you think 5 would be enough to cover us with these other restrictions, or? I don't
All of
know,
our
what's everybody
current
think?
ones are larger than 10 acres.
Excuse me?
Every single solar field we have in town
Oh,
right
they
now
are?
is
Yes,
larger
they
than
are.
10
Okay.
acres.
So I think 10 acres is a
That was
good,
in our
is a good size.
one of our
And
last
you think
handouts
this is
from the
covered
previous
enough?
meeting. She had me
For now?
look at how many acres each of them were.
Okay.
So,
As a Band-Aid.
so my
Right.
biggest concern has always been is the fact that we have very little time before the next town meeting.
Right.
And that's the reason that a moratorium was what I originally had wanted to put in place, because it then gave us time to
Time.
do this here.
Yep.
Without somebody trying to sneak something in, and us causing the town and us problems. So I think by putting these safeguards in, again, this has to be not only passed by,
Us.
well, it has to be reviewed by us, but then it has to be passed by town.
Right.
By in the town meeting itself.
and we have to have a public hearing.
And we have to have a public hearing and the whole thing. So this still has to be sold to the public, and
Right,
it's certainly
right.
something that needs to be done. But if it were put in place, I think it puts some safeguards in that allow us still then to continue to review and take into consideration other issues that we are seeing right
Okay.
now that need to be addressed, but are lesser of concern.
Right.
Two on the back, deal with dimensions and density requirements. So, presently, this is exactly how it reads. Dimension and density required presently. Setbacks. For large-scale ground-mounted solar voltaic installations, front side and rear yard setbacks shall be as follows. Front yard. Front yard depth shall be the distance allowed in zoning districts. So that's at least 75, but it can go up to 100, depending on the zoning district setbacks. But then it said side yard. Each side yard shall have a depth of 50 feet, and the rear yard 50 feet.
And our proposal is to increase that to 75 feet,
To 75 feet.
which basically provides
Yeah.
more of a buffer.
Yes, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Because
we have
it's the
had
neighbors
problems.
you're looking out for,
Yes,
but
that's
these are
right.
big areas.
Right.
And then the last one, this is tracked from there, so that's 75, and we're gonna leave the front yard as it is, which is a minimum of 75 feet.
Mhm.
But in the last section here, we're gonna not let them, we're gonna strike this language that says you can cut up to half of it.
Right,
if-
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, and then this language, it's in sort of the italics, you can see it, was right out of that, was the model bylaw. The Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources strongly discourages locating solar photovoltaic, I always get that wrong, installations on sites that would require extensive tree cutting because the important water management, cooling, and climate benefits trees naturally possess. So therefore, clear cutting of natural vegetation shall be limited to what is absolutely necessary, as determined by the Planning Board Conservation Commission. Where it's not in italics, it was already in our bylaw. So I'm adding the word absolutely necessary and a lead-in
And
language.
the preamble that basically explains why.
Right, okay,
You don't
that's
want to
great.
cut trees for. So the question is, do you want to take a shot at this?
Would we add this to the public hearing on April 1st? Is that the
Yeah.
plan?
Yes.
We'll take it to the
should.
select board?
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I
is
think we should,
everybody?
that way it covers us and the town a little better.
I mean, that's,
I think it goes a long way, actually.
I think it does too.
is there any concerns with what was discussed, I mean, what was presented here in these 2 pages?
No, I think that saves us from it popping up in neighborhoods, but still allows those pits to be used.
It puts some controls at least where we don't have them. And I think it takes the moratorium off the table,
Right.
puts some controls, and it gives us the breathing
Time
room for
to-
doing the,
To do the whole thing.
to do the more thorough review.
All right.
Not to interrupt, Madam Chair, point of order, if you're going, 2 of you are going to be presenting before the Board of Selectmen and you wish to speak with the voice of the entire board, I feel that a vote on both the associate member as a resident and these proposed bylaw amendments should be in order so that if it's asked by the Board of Selectmen, if you have the weight of the board behind you, you can say it has been voted.
Absolutely.
I think that
You're
makes a
right.
lot of sense, and we should do that.
Right.
Right. Let one of these guys, because we were the authors, so you
Yes.
guys, if you agree with us,
I
make
don't
the
know,
motion for a second.
1 second, Craig, do you need some more time to review?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
You okay with it?
Yeah, I'm all for protecting the neighbors, so.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we make these changes to our sign law, bylaw,
And then
and
you-
present them to the selectmen.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Do we need to make a vote on the amendment to the in-town as well
Yeah,
requirement?
the resident
The resident
requirement,
requirement.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we also present the in-town requirement for the associate member to the the select board.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? No. All right.
And then the solar, because you said sign the first time, not solar.
That's what you said.
You said sign, not solar, so I
I'm
just wanted
sorry, I
to
meant
do the
solar.
third one, that way we're
No,
we're
it's
covered
fine.
on all
Yep.
of these.
I thought you were going methodically.
Oh, I'll make a motion that we
Accept.
accept the
So,
changes to the solar bylaw and present that to the selectmen.
Okay,
I second.
yep.
discussion?
Discussion?
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye, aye.
May I ask one, and I briefly discussed this here with you and Christine. There is this one item that we have right now in our solar bylaw that requires that there be an annual report from the solar lots that is due on January of each year.
Yes.
I believe that at this point in time, can you tell us, Christine, what we have received thus far and who has maybe provided that report?
The 91 Williamsville Road did provide it last year,
Mhm.
very early in the year, around the time that we were discussing with them the concepts of what we were doing with their berm. I haven't seen anything from them this year, and then I believe I got one from 232 240 Gardner Road. Again, the middle of last year. I have to wonder if somebody heard that we were looking at solar fields. Aside from that, the other two have not brought forth anything Pitcherville Road. But again, I'm in discussion with them about several points of compliance. But if you wanted to, I could write a letter to all 4 technically 5 fields, and ask them to submit an annual report.
So the point is that in our bylaws, there is a requirement that there be an annual report that is submitted to the planning board.
I think they should.
And it's supposed to come to us every January.
Mhm.
And I don't believe that we have received one as of yet for anyone for this year, as of this year.
No.
So I think
we should send them a letter.
it is in order, and it is basically indicating to them that we are observing the bylaw
Mm-hmm.
and enforcing the requirement.
Yep. I will put that for our bylaw that the planning board is following up to find out, to obtain a copy of the solar report for this year.
Does that need a motion?
To allow me to write it and send it, that's it.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
I have a question. What is this report supposed to contain?
It is
Again.
pretty vague, but it's basically making sure that they are still within the confines of what they said they were going to do. If
Uh-huh.
they're still generating with the same wattage, and they're basically also supposed to say something to the tune of they're still obeying all the rules they said they would.
Oh,
They're
and
still
there's-
operating within the parameters.
And there's
that-
the
Of the special
maintenance
per-
thing.
of the special permit that was
okay.
sent.
And also the
granted to
concept
them.
of their pilot as well. The pilot is supposed to be kept in touch with the fact that they were supposed to generate this many units of energy. So when that report comes in, we're supposed to send it to the assessor's office, which is easy for me at the moment, and make sure that it jives with what the pilot says, because if they're generating more, they might think about adjusting the pilot accordingly.
Which is a good thing.
Yes.
So I
So
think
we
the
need
letter
to-
should also state out that it is their requirement in our special permit, and maybe put what the consequences are for not passing this in.
Okay.
Since we have to seem to chase it every single year.
I agree with you. I think it's a very good point.
Okay. And that the outlines of the special permit are contingent on their certificate to generate. So if you
Right.
put that in there, if they
I think-
understand that this report is linked to their certificate to generate, they'll immediately get on it, because the concept of the planning board rescinding their certificate to generate means they'd have to shut down.
Yes. Which is within the power of this body.
And they
Yes.
don't want to probably shut down.
Nope.
Okay, so we need to vote on that now? I seconded
Okay.
the motion.
Yep.
I made the
Okay.
motion.
All in favor of sending the letter?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. Wow, what a marathon. Okay, updates from other members, master plan. We know what we're doing on the 16th. We're presenting gravel pits, the solar, the membership. Anything else? I mean, the residency requirement for the member
There's the concept that we were going to get rid of.
and the gravel.
The gravel we can't touch, that's not ours. Oh, you mean, well, on the 16th, I'm sorry,
On
yes.
the 16th.
Those are the 4 things you're addressing with the Board of Selectmen,
Mhm.
is those 4 items. And
Okay.
I will make sure I send an updated letter to Ryan asking for the agenda to include those other 2 items.
Tell them we'll try to still to keep within their 30-minute restriction.
He understands that it might go a little out, but he has asked that you try and stick to 30 minutes, because the Board of Selectmen does have an agenda, lengthy
You know,
agenda as well.
they're always busy. Okay, so then we're down to administrative matters, and you're just gonna tell us about this training.
Were there any updates from members of associated boards that people wanted to make? Since several of you are on other boards?
The CIPC at this point in time completed all of the work that we had to do in
Okay.
2019, and
Okay.
I think everything was presented. I think we are in a quiescent state right now.
Okay.
Board of Health is fine. We're all set.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No,
just wanna make
no,
sure you
that's
skipped
good.
that.
Anybody
No
else that? I have, I'm only on the, community, or the, I can't even think anymore.
Okay, so that's no update.
Before we make a motion to adjourn, can I ask for one thing, please?
Yeah, we gotta
We still have one
do
other
item.
one
Administrative
last
matters.
item, go
Oh,
do
sorry.
the administrative matters, and then Bill, hold your thought, we'll recognize you, go ahead.
Okay, CTPC, we've just said we're going to dedicate 2 days to the public hearing for John, but we also need Saturdays in April that you guys are available for the zoning overlay districts. I have been in touch with the CTPC. They said that they can't do anything until April because they're so busy with their conference, which is on March 21st. I did send that flyer around to you.
Yes.
It's a really great conference. I went last year, and they basically give you 3 things, and you go, and they give you, breakfast and lunch, and you're there until 3.
That's
But
at Holy Cross.
it is at Holy Cross, so it's right there off of 290. But as outside of that, as far as our zoning overlay for 68, we were looking for training, $400, to have them come in and train us or anyone else who's interested after we get the date settled. But I need Saturdays in April. from all of you.
So that would be either the
Sports.
4th, 11th,
Wow.
18th, and 25th, right?
Yes.
I'm open every Saturday in April, but my catering starts picking up too, so that's the only problem.
Okay.
The answer to this, I know you sent it out.
Technically, if we post this as a meeting of the board and the board does not attend, the meeting can still progress. I would just put no quorum and not have to do minutes.
No,
And
I
I would leave
understand.
and you guys would have a meeting. No, you guys would watch the presentation.
My preference,
Yep.
personally, if
Yep.
you want my dates, is the very first 2 Saturdays of April.
So the 4th and the 11th.
Yes.
Excuse
Yeah,
myself, I check my calendar here.
Okay,
The only one I could personally do is the 25th.
okay,
Okay. And again, it's a preference. It's not
okay.
not that I could potentially not make the others. I need to just.
I'm already going to probably the 2 in March. I'm signed up for, the housing one. So I don't know, but April, Saturdays in April. The 11th, the 4th and the 11th are all right. The 18th is not good. The 25th is okay.
Okay, so do we want to try and shoot for the 25th? And give them the alternate of the 11th, or that way we at least give them 2, because they're going to come back with whether or not their person can even do it. I mean, they said they have several trainers. They're going to try and push for availability. I'll tell them the 25th is our first preference, and that the 11th is our second.
As long as Francois can make it on the 25th. I don't want to make it the 25th.
No, that's
just
fine.
'cause-
I'll
Okay.
try to make sure that I can make that available.
Okay.
Sounds good.
If that's the one that you have available.
That is- yeah, that's
and I
the-
understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 25th and the
Craig's not
alternate's
sure.
the 11th, right?
I gotta wait for the school sports schedules to come.
Right.
And they think it would go, how long does it go, did they say?
They said that this might be 3+ hours, so we'd be looking at a morning.
Okay.
Don't worry, if
The
you guys
AM.
have to do this, I will bring
Okay.
muffins.
Okay. Will they be home baked?
Brutal.
Yes,
I want
Okay.
coffee.
I do that every week.
All right, Phil
No, I
has
don't do coffee.
Yeah, coffee.
Bill,
The
your
one thing I
question.
wanted to bring up is,
Yep.
could we be okay with the board to ask the town manager to see if we can get some extra outlets put in, as we had a laptop here tonight that wouldn't work because it needed to be charged. There's not enough outlets out back here. Or
Okay,
maybe
I
Maybe
can,
we
I
get
can
an
just put in
extension cord
some.
with a.
Why can't
An
you put a
extension
power
One of
strip?
those strips.
Yeah,
would
power
help.
strips. Oh, I could grab one right now. I didn't know that anybody was out of power. I'm
It
sorry.
was my own fault for not
But
charging
if
it.
you, yeah, if
doesn't
you tell me
matter.
before the meeting, I will definitely from now on at least make sure a power strip is available so we have plenty of
It
power.
was just because sometimes you think it's charged, you pull out, and say, oh
I won't
man.
overload a circuit or anything to
No,
put
you
them on
won't.
power strip.
Not for these
Not-
little
not for
these
these
little
little
laptops.
Power. But I think it would
These
help
are-
a lot.
They're not as
barely
power
cell
hungry,
phones.
But your point. Good
Yes.
point.
All right, who wants to make the big important motion
I'll make
here?
that motion to adjourn.
And I will second the motion to
At
adjourn.
8:52?
That's what I
Not
have.
debatable?
That'd be-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, excellent.
Wow.
What a meeting.
We went through a lot of stuff.
This was, yours.
And I wanted to be out of here by 8:45 at the latest.
We're getting something done.
Yeah, let's see if
Oh,
it
we're
flies.
so
I think
good.
it will.
I don't know.
Sign by law's huge.
Yes.
If nothing else.
Literally read bills over
Sorry.
and over again. And
I am. By the way, we are
Listening to
still
the
being
old one
recorded, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to make sure
Nope.
you're aware.
Okay.
Yep.
No business.
If you leave your phone on the
Well,
table.
no business anyway.
They could-
They can ask for it.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
No,
No, I know.
I know.
That's what makes sure you know.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
why I leave it on my lap.
So,
I usually do, but
when
I get
are you
alerts
in?
from my
We can
son's
meet.
diabetes monitor, so I like to make sure I don't miss them.
Oh, I hear you.
I
How's he
am
doing?
Tomorrow from
getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6.
It's a big lifestyle change for
Oh,
all
yeah?
of us, but
Oh.
we're getting there.
For the family.
Do you have 2 seconds?
Yeah, absolutely.
That way I can avoid this whole thing.
Yeah, of course.
Give me a second.
We're still on the air, too.
I know, that's why. I
Yeah.
wanted to do it.
Yep.
what's works for you? Can I come in the morning around 10?
Tomorrow I'm not in until 2. So no.
Come in tomorrow, when you work in
6. And then on
Thank you, sir.
Friday I'm in 8 to 4.
Take those back with you.
I actually work out of here now.
That's her office now, right
That's
there.
my office. It's very nice and it's
You're not
much.
over there anymore?
You know what happened? She got in trouble.
I did, so I got sent to the principal's office and they made me stay. I'll fix it, I promise.
She's actually, they moved the
I'm half
assessors over
assessor
here.
now.
So here's the deal is,
So you had to move over
Todd's
here.
flying out on JetBlue to visit
That's why it's more
mom.
organized, and if you walk in there, because the door's open, there's art on the walls, it's so much nicer. I've organized.
So where did
Do you prefer Friday morning?
Iris, she's no longer there.
the town secretary?
Town secretary is Bobby now. Because remember when Lori became town clerk?
Yeah, but wasn't that her office?
No, that was,
No, because they consolidated the town secretary with Bobby's assistant town accountant. So now that's one position and Bobby's still sitting right there.
Oh.
And we don't have a separate town secretary. We had to consult, remember budget cuts? That's what happens. People go like this and they become one person.
all I have to say is thank the Lord we have you in our corner.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Well, it's a shame we have to share you, but, you know. All right, so what works
I like
better?
having more hours, thank you. Getting paid
good.
is nice.
Yep.
What, do you want Friday
very much.
morning or tomorrow
Thank you.
afternoon?
We'll see you.
Friday morning is fine.
What time you get in?
Do you wanna save
Eight.
any of these?
No, I'm not
Or should we,
taking
Yes, I want at least one of those because I didn't get that.
now this map goes with
That's
you, right?
fine, yeah.
I'll put-
I'll try to come in around
for you.
9
Fine.
on.
Do we have to, should we
Friday.
unplug these?
No, because there's gonna be some kind of meeting tomorrow in here and they have to record it, so they're leaving these out.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Two things, Alice.
Yeah.
I wanted to discuss with you. One is that, the A&R you just agreed to,
Where is the trash?
Yeah?
there's one over next to
Yeah.
the thing. It did not have appropriate frontage. A&Rs cannot be reversed, so it's nothing we can do about it now.
You're thinking of
This,
Good night.
right here, did not have
yeah, but that
appropriate
isn't
frontage.
on, that isn't a dividing line.
No, but this is, you're
This-
supposed, any A&R, both lots are supposed to have appropriate frontage,
But
whether or
this
not it's
isn't a
dividing it or
lot
not.
that's- This isn't a lot being created, that's what he was saying. There's this, the original lot,
All it says in the A&R thing is both lots have to have appropriate frontage. And if you,
yeah, but this lot isn't being divided.
yes
the
it
only
is,
thing-
because this goes all the way back here. This is the frontage for that lot. He said, the appropriate frontage isn't on this one, it's on this one. This is not a town accepted land, way, even though they call it Schaefer Drive. This is not a town accepted way.
Yeah, but this is not a new line that's being created.
It doesn't matter. It says the A&R says that both lots have to have frontage. I'm just making you
But,
guys
but,
aware.
but the both lot, wait a minute, because this is important to me.
It is.
The lot that's, because I did think about this,